Chapter 97. These two Stormhouse disciples originally had no enmity with Yang Kai, but along the way, several of their junior brothers had died. They couldn't find Wen Fei Chun for revenge, so they could only blame it on Yang Kai. Now that they had met their enemy, it was natural that their eyes would turn red. Brother Xiong looked at Yang Kai with a mocking smile and said coldly, "You have guts? You actually dared to throw yourself into the trap. Where is the girl you saved? Beat me, and I'll tell you." Yang Kai cracked his knuckles, shook his neck, and slowly walked towards the two people. Brother Xiong sneered. "Junior brother, you don't know what's good for you. I'll go teach him a lesson." As he spoke, he unsheathed the long sword at his waist and charged towards Kai Yang to attack. Brother Xiong had the strength of initial element realm level 6, while Yang Kai was only at initial element realm level 4. There was already a gap of 2 levels between them, not to mention that Brother Xiong was holding a sharp weapon, so he felt that he had the upper hand. This sword was just a test, and Brother Xiong didn't expect to kill Yang Kai in one move. In the darkness, the sword flashed, and Yang Kai dodged sideways. He raised his palms and began to fight with Brother Xiong of Stormhouse. Using his palms against the sword, Yang Kai was restrained in every way. He kept retreating, and by the time Brother Xiong stabbed out for the 9th time, he had already retreated more than 10 steps. Brother Xiong laughed loudly. A grain of rice dares to show off its brilliance. "Yang Kai, give me your life." The previous test had allowed him to understand Yang Kai's details, so it was naturally time to kill him. The Yuan Qi in his body began to circulate, and Brother Xiong's long sword faintly emitted the sound of wind and thunder. "Thunder Wind Chant." Brother Xiong majestically shouted out his sword move. Suddenly, an arc of light appeared on his long sword, and with unparalleled sharpness, it stabbed towards Yang Kai's chest at a speed that he couldn't dodge. As expected, Yang Kai couldn't dodge, but there was no trace of fear on his face. Instead, he raised his palm and slapped the sword. Brother Xiong sneered. He thought to himself, "My sword is now filled with thunder power. If a mere initial element 4th level cultivator like you really touches it, I'm afraid you'll be electrocuted and paralyzed. At that time, you'll be at my mercy." Thinking of this, Brother Xiong did not withdraw his move at all. Instead, his sword moves became faster and faster. Yang Kai shouted. His palms suddenly became extremely red, as if there was a burning flame. A wave of hot air rushed towards Brother Xiong. Not only did it dispel the cold around him, it also made him feel as if he had fallen into a sea of fire. Clang! The sword rang. Yang Kai's palm hit the sword, and the arc of light on the sword suddenly disappeared. With this slap, the long sword also deviated from its direction and pierced past Yang Kai's shoulder without hurting him at all. Brother Xiong was shocked. In this confrontation, his Yuan Qi was actually not a match for the opponent. He thought to himself, "Isn't he only at the initial element 4th level? Why is the Yuan Qi in his body more vigorous than mine? Moreover, the burning Yuan Qi in his palm just now was too pure. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to extinguish my thunder power." Panicking, Brother Xiong hurriedly withdrew his sword and retreated. He was preparing to adjust his breathing and slowly attack again, but how could Yang Kai give him this opportunity? Taking advantage of the time when Brother withdrew his sword, Yang Kai took a step forward, and under Brother Xiong's shocked and frightened gaze, Yang Kai pointed a finger at his heart. Knowing that the number of enemies he had to deal with was not small, Yang Kai was quite decisive. He did not hesitate to use a drop of yang liquid to kill his opponent in one strike. Brother Xiong's body suddenly stopped moving, leaving only the whistling of the cold wind in the valley, as if crying and complaining. The Stormhouse junior brother who was on the side did not understand for a moment, and could not help but softly call out, "Brother Xiong, Brother Xiong." Before his voice fell, Brother Xiong's body suddenly fell straight down. Yang Kai laughed nastily. Your Xiong brother is waiting for you on the road to the underworld. The junior brother was stunned and immediately let out a strange cry and ran away. His strength was slightly inferior to Brother Xiong's. He was only at the initial element boundary 5th level. Yang Kai had killed Brother Xiong effortlessly, so wouldn't it be easy to deal with him? You think you can escape? Yang Kai sneered, holding Brother Xiong's sword in his hand, and chased after him. It had to be said that the dense yin qi in the valley was a great help to Yang Kai. Under the corrosion of the yin qi, everyone's strength would be reduced. Only Yang Kai practiced the true Yang secret art. The yuan qi in his body was the nemesis of the yin qi, so he did not need to worry about being affected. He just needed to consume a bit of true Yang yuan qi to dispel the chill. Although the Stormhouse junior brother was at the initial element boundary 5th level, the strength he could display in this valley was lower than Yang Kai's. After chasing for a short time, Yang Kai closed the distance between the two of them to about 10 meters, which was more than enough distance for him. Yang Kai suddenly threw the sword in his hand as he ran, hearing the sound of wind behind him. The Stormhouse junior brother nimbly made a dodging action, narrowly avoiding the sword. But with this delay, the distance of 10 feet was suddenly reduced to 0. Unable to escape, the Stormhouse junior brother decisively turned around and pulled out his weapon to fight Yang Kai. But a red light flashed in front of him, and he instinctively blocked it with his weapon. With a catching sound, the steel weapon in his hand was cut in half by the red light, as fragile as tofu. The next moment he felt a heat on his neck, as if something had cut through it. Yang Kai stopped, a thin, blood-red blade, as thin as a cicada's wing flashing on his fingertips. A drop of blood rolled down the blade. The Stormhouse junior brother gulped and stared blankly at Yang Kai. He pointed at him, but couldn't say anything. After a few breaths, his head suddenly flew up into the sky, and a bloody mist burst out from his neck. Kill 2 people first. This battle was effortless, so easy that Yang Kai didn't even use unyielding will. In the past battles, Yang Kai always had to use this mysterious martial skill to defeat his enemies. But this time, he discovered that even if he didn't use this martial skill, he still had the strength to kill people above his level. Yang Kai felt the need to re-examine himself. Just as Yang Kai was about to quickly leave the scene, he heard the sound of clothes flapping in the wind from both sides. There were 2 people quickly approaching from the left and 1 from the right. It should be the strange cry of the junior brother that had attracted them. They were about 100 feet away from him. Yang Kai originally wanted to hide, but after thinking carefully, he suddenly quickly approached from the left. If he wasn't wrong, the people coming should be the remaining 3 people from Stormhouse. They might have separated to make it easier to find him and Xianing Chang, but they weren't too far away from each other. Now that the remaining 3 people were all here, Yang Kai naturally couldn't ask for more. The strength of the Stormhouse people was much lower than that of the Blood Group people, so he could use them to test his own strength. Chapter 98. However, among these 3 people, Nu Lang was the cultivator at Qi transforming stage 1st level, so it would be a bit troublesome to deal with him. Therefore, Yang Kai had to first deal with the other 2 initial element stage Stormhouse disciples before he could have a good fight with Nu Lang. He wanted to see if he, as an initial element stage 4th level, had the ability to defeat a Qi transforming stage opponent. Yang Kai's fighting spirit was high, and his blood and Qi were rolling. Yang Kai's prediction was correct. The 2 people on the left were indeed Stormhouse disciples. Their strength was about the same as the 2 people from before, so even if they were stronger, they wouldn't be that much stronger. Hearing their junior brother shout, the 2 people hadn't yet arrived at the scene of the accident when they saw a person dashing towards them. Who is it? The 2 Stormhouse disciples stopped and vigilantly looked at the person. Yang Kai didn't answer. His speed suddenly increased, and he fiercely rushed towards them. feeling Yang Kai's killing intent and hostility. How could the two people not react? They cried out in alarm, "It's Yang Kai!" As soon as they finished speaking, their weapons were already in their hands, and they fiercely attacked Yang Kai from the left and right. Yang Kai's fighting spirit was very strong. Facing the two people's attacks, he didn't retreat at all. His body was like lightning, and the blood-red blade on his fingertips flew out, fiercely shooting towards one of the two people. That person raised his weapon to block, but how could an ordinary weapon block this blade made from a drop of yang liquid? As soon as they came into contact, the Stormhouse disciple's weapon was directly cut off. Fortunately, this person's reaction wasn't slow. In a panic, he suddenly dodged, barely avoiding the fatal blow, and let the blade fly past his waist. With a piercing sound, this person screamed. He felt as if his waist was branded by a soldering iron, and the air was suddenly filled with the smell of burnt flesh. "Brother?" The other person's expression changed, and the attack he was about to attack suddenly shrank back a bit. In a life-and-death battle, his retreat was equal to exposing himself to Yang Kai's attack. How could Yang Kai be polite to him? Casually blocking the sharp edge of the opponent's weapon, he pressed his palm on the opponent's chest. Vigorous and scorching hot true Yang Yuan Qi poured into the opponent's heart meridian. The opponent's eyes bulged, and he flew out in response. He fell to the ground, spasming for a moment, and then stopped moving. He was actually killed in a single exchange, even faster than that senior brother Xiong from before. Yang Kai's attack was successful, but before he could pull back, the Stormhouse disciple who was still alive actually swung his sword at him. Unable to dodge, Yang Kai could only instinctively tighten his muscles. Swoosh! The sword flashed, and a bloody wound appeared on his abdomen. Pain spread from the wound, and blood seeped out. Yang Kai was unmoved, and only a crazy and bloodthirsty smile appeared on his face. He turned his head and looked at the opponent. That person saw his own junior brother die in front of him, and in his anger, how could he care about anything else? There was only one thought in his mind: to kill Yang Kai and avenge his junior brother. After his attack succeeded, he stabbed again, aiming for Yang Kai's throat. Yang Kai raised his arm to block, and the sword stabbed about an inch into his arm. It was pressed against the bone, but there was no way for it to go any further. Hey, letting the blood drip down, Yang Kai grinned maliciously at him. In the darkness, 2 rows of snow-white fangs were exposed, like a fierce beast that was choosing its prey. At this moment, Yang Kai's entire body was filled with an evil aura. Crazy, excited, and bloodthirsty evil aura. That smile was even more chilling. This Stormhouse disciple, who was still alive, had never seen such a person. After being stabbed twice by him, he was still able to laugh. Was this person crazy? He was frightened and wanted to jump back. In a battle of life and death, being frightened by the enemy's aura, how could he survive? Yang Kai raised his leg and kicked him in the crotch. The sound of something being kicked was heard. The man immediately bent his waist and knelt on the ground, his face pale. Pulling out the long sword that was stuck in his arm, Kai Yang threw it down, impaling him on the spot. 2 more killed. Swoosh! At this moment, a person finally appeared from the right. It was Nu Lang. These 5 people of Stormhouse were divided into 3 groups, searching for Yang Kai and Xianing Chang, but they didn't expect that Yang Kai would defeat them one by one. At first glance, Nu Lang saw his 2 dead junior brothers on the ground. In a blink of an eye, he glared at Yang Kai and asked, "Did you kill them?" Yang Kai turned his head to look at him. His face was crazy but calm. "Seems like everybody underestimated you. I didn't expect you to have this ability." Nu Lang's face was extremely gloomy. He pressed down the anger in his heart, took a deep breath, and said, "I have something to ask you." "No need to ask. I killed Nu Lang and Cheng Xiaofeng." "You didn't guess wrong. It was you?" Nu Lang's body shook. He had always hoped that his brother had just gone out to play. Although the possibility was low, it was still a hope. But now, this hope was broken by Yang Kai. He admitted that his brother's disappearance was related to him, and he killed him. They wanted to kill me. Of course, I can kill them. Yang Kai was a little impatient. Don't talk nonsense. Let's fight. Good, good, good. Nu Lang's murderous, intense sword as he glared at Yang Kai with resentment. Since you dare to take responsibility for your actions, I won't say anything more. Today, I will use your life to pay tribute to his soul in heaven. While talking, Nu Lang launched his movement skill. His body flashed and arrived in front of Yang Kai in a blink of an eye. His hand swept horizontally towards Yang Kai's throat like an eagle's claw. Yang Kai's face was cold. The strength of a cultivator at the Qi transforming realm was really different from that of a cultivator at the initial element realm. The power of this attack was incomparable. In a hurry, Yang Kai leaned back and put his hand on his throat to protect his vital parts. Nu Lang beamed a faint smile. His 5 fingers changed direction midway, trying to grab something. Swish, Yang Kai stumbled back a few steps. Looking down, he saw that his clothes had been torn apart, and there were 5 blood-red claw marks on his chest. Furthermore, there was a strange aura that had invaded his body. He activated the true Yang secret art and dissolved the Qi in a blink of an eye. You're just a level 4 initial element realm warrior. How dare you be so presumptuous in front of me? I won't kill you quickly. I will torture you until you wish you were dead. Nu Lang's face became more ferocious as his attack succeeded. Fancy but impractical moves. You fight like a woman and scratch people. Don't you feel ashamed? Yang Kai tore off his tattered clothes, revealing his skinny but strong body. He sneered with a cold face. Nu Lang's face reddened, but he couldn't refute. Who asked him to cultivate claw martial arts? This was indeed a little inelegant. You have a sharp tongue. Don't beg for mercy later. Nu Lang didn't want to show off his courage. His hands were like eagle claws, attacking again. You want to taste the power of my fists? Yang Kai laughed and punched towards the 2 crazy claws. You're overestimating yourself. Nu Lang sneered, with his Qi transforming realm level 1 cultivation. Even if it was a hard rock, he could scratch a few holes in it. Not to mention the fist of a cultivator at the initial element realm level 4. Chapter 99. In the blink of an eye, the 2 of them started to fight. Yang Kai's fist fiercely hit Nu Lang's palm, but Nu Lang's 5 fingers grabbed it tightly. The Yuan Qi in their bodies burst out at the same time, colliding with each other. What? Nu Lang was surprised. He found that the Yuan Qi in Yang Kai's body was so overbearing that even he couldn't resist it for a long time. How could it be? There was a big gap between their strengths. No matter what, he couldn't be a threat to him. However, the fact was in front of him, so Nu Lang had to be cautious. If this stalemate continued, he was afraid that his 5 fingers would really be burned. Thinking of this, Nu Lang retracted his hand and jumped back a few steps. He wanted to take advantage of this short time to dissolve the Yuan Qi in his body. Looking at Yang Kai with a gloomy face, Nu Lang was even more surprised, because when they had fought a moment ago, he hadn't been able to crush Yang Kai's fist. Although he had left 5 finger holes on his fist, it wasn't the result he had expected. In his estimation, that grab just now should have been able to crush his entire fist. This kid, he did have some skills. No wonder why his junior brothers were killed by him. It seemed he didn't win by luck. Nu Lang's face became solemn. Yang Kai shook his fist, bowed his head, and looked at it. When he raised his eyes again, the craziness in his eyes was thicker. Yang Kai had been hiding, letting the blood in his body boil, feeling the pain from his wounds, and feeling the pressure from the enemy. He had been trying to raise his unyielding will. Only with an unyielding will and determination to win would the mysterious martial skill that belonged solely to him be able to display its greatest effect. And now, this moment had come. Yang Kai didn't need to be suppressed anymore. A flow of boiling hot energy came out from his bones. Along with this flow of hot energy, Yang Kai felt that his entire body had changed. Before, when he had accidentally triggered the unyielding will, Yang Kai didn't know why. Even if he defeated the enemy, he was still confused. But this time, it was different. He could clearly feel a huge amount of energy being generated from his bones, pouring into his meridians, nourishing his flesh and blood, and crazily increasing his strength. Again, Yang Kai was like a wolf hunting for prey in the jungle. His eyes gazed at Nu Lang, roaring and launching a strike. It was the same punch as before, without any fancy moves. "You want to die?" Nu Lang sneered. Although he was surprised by Yang Kai's Yuan Qi, it didn't mean that Yang Kai could hurt him. As long as he stopped in time, even if the Yuan Qi was strange, he couldn't hurt him. On the other hand, he could hurt Yang Kai again and again, and there would always be a moment when he would be able to crush his entire fist. It could be said that the reckless way Yang Kai had chosen to fight was in line with Nu Lang's taste. While sneering, Nu Lang's big hand grabbed Yang Kai one more time. In the second head-on collision, Nu Lang felt something was wrong because the power in Yang Kai's punch was much stronger than before. The Yuan Qi was also more ferocious. It was almost the same as the full power of the initial element realm level 5. But so what? Initial element realm level 4 and initial element realm level 5 were the same in his eyes. They weren't a threat at all. Only death awaited them. After this exchange, the injury on Kai Yang's fist became more and more serious. Blood dripped from his fist, and his body was forced to retreat. He cut an extremely sorry figure. Nu Lang had already started, but in for a penny, in for a pound. Taking advantage of the situation, he continued to attack Kai Yang. His claws whistled through the air, leaving a trail of claw marks in the darkness. Yang Kai didn't say anything. He just stubbornly fought back. When Nu Lang's attack arrived, he threw out a punch. Left punch, right punch. His rhythm was clear. Although the wound on his hand wasn't light, he had blocked all of Nu Lang's attacks, making him unable to take his life. In the dark night, muffled thuds echoed one after another. Along with each thud, Yang Kai's body retreated a few steps. The wound on his hand was getting more and more serious. However, his eyes didn't show any sign of panic. Instead, he was resolute. A thought of winning was brewing in his heart, waiting for the last moment to burst out. How could it be? Nu Lang was extremely shocked. On the surface, it seemed that he had the absolute advantage. After all, his realm was much higher than Yang Kai's. If he couldn't gain the upper hand, then all his years of cultivation would have been in vain. However, Nu Lang couldn't say anything. His 10 fingers had been burned by Yang Kai's Yuan Qi. Each of his fingers had a circle of blisters as if they were burned by fire. The 10 fingers were connected to the heart. The heart-piercing pain came from his fingertips, making him gasp for air. If it was only like this, Nu Lang wouldn't be so shocked. What he was really shocked about was Yang Kai's strength. In the first battle, Yang Kai's strength was, as he had observed, a mere 4th level of the initial element realm was nothing to be afraid of. The second battle, his strength had risen to 5th level of the initial element realm. The 4th battle, this kid's punch, and the Yuan Qi fluctuation had reached 6th level of the initial element realm. The 7th battle, 7th level of the initial element realm. The 12th battle, 8th level of the initial element realm. It seemed that as the battle continued, this person's strength was rising like a sesame seed. This was extremely strange and unimaginable. Moreover, this rising didn't show any sign of stopping. Nu Lang's face was aghast. He didn't know to what extent Kai Yang's strength had risen. If he had directly reached the Qi transforming stage, then he would have no hope of victory because his opponent's world Qi was too overbearing. After half an hour, Nu Lang couldn't fight with Yang Kai face to face anymore because he couldn't gain any advantage. Every time they fought, Yang Kai's body was like a rock, motionless at the same place. On the contrary, Nu Lang was the one who was forced to retreat. Nu Lang could only use his agility to deal with Yang Kai. He tried to find an opportunity to give Yang Kai a fatal blow. However, although Yang Kai's defense was simple, it was airtight. Nu Lang couldn't find an opportunity to kill. 9th level of the initial element realm. Nu Lang's eyes trembled. He found that after this battle, Yang Kai's strength had risen to the peak of the initial element realm. However, his Yuan Qi fluctuation finally stabilized and didn't continue to rise. This discovery made Nu Lang heave a sigh of relief. Although he was only at the first level of the Qi transformation realm, which was only one level higher than the 9th level of the initial element realm, this one level difference was also a big gap. Therefore, Nu Lang was still confident that he could kill Yang Kai. He must have eaten some kind of pellet to increase his strength. However, no matter what kind of pellet it was, there would be some side effects. His essence was still at the 4th level of the initial element realm. Regarding the Yuan Qi storage in his body, he couldn't be compared with Nu Lang's. Nu Lang was waiting for Yang Kai to be exhausted. Then he would take his life. Chapter 100. While Nu Lang had made up his mind, Yang Kai suddenly stopped his attack. He frowned as if he was thinking about something. In the next moment, a loud noise was heard. A fiery red light burst out in the dark night, frightening Nu Lang to the point that his soul almost left his body. At this moment, Yang Kai's body was burning with a layer of flame. It wasn't a real flame. It was the effect of the Yuan Qi in his body. When it reached a certain level, the fiery red Yuan Qi wrapped him up. For a moment, the heat wave hit his face. The Yin Qi in the valley seemed to have met its nemesis and couldn't gather around him anymore. Kai Yang's face was illuminated by the fiery red light of the world Qi. On his upper body, his refined muscles tightened, making him look wild and uninhibited, moving unhindered and unhindered. His fists were badly mutilated, and there was a sword wound about half a foot long on his abdomen. Blood was still flowing out of the wound, and his flesh was overturned. It was extremely terrifying. His eyes were scarlet, and like a trapped beast, they emitted endless madness and bloodthirsty aura. The evil aura was awe-inspiring. Nu Lang was frightened. He hurriedly retreated a few steps and screamed. Mad demon? He thought that Yang Kai couldn't control the Yuan Qi in his body during the battle, and let the Yuan Qi go crazy and swallow his mind. However, shouldn't this kind of thing only happen in the Qi transformation realm and above? He was just a cultivator in the initial element realm. How could this happen? Mad demon. Yang Kai turned his head to look at him. Although his eyes were frightening, his face was calm. He didn't have the expression that a person who had become the demon race should have. He said disdainfully, short-sighted. While talking, the burning Yuan Qi on his body was retracted. The flames in the sky disappeared, leaving only 2 fists covered with a layer of true Yang Yuan Qi. It looked like these 2 fists were holding 2 burning flames. The flames were swaying with the wind, but they didn't stop. Do you still have consciousness? Nu Lang looked at Yang Kai in surprise. He wanted to find a trace of humanity in his eyes. However, he was disappointed. He couldn't see any humanity in those scarlet eyes. Only the crazy fighting spirit and the aura of slaughter were left. It shouldn't be. This was the state of the mad demon. His eyes didn't have any humanity. How could he still think? You tell me, do I? Yang Kai took a step forward. With this step, the distance between him and Nu Lang was shortened to the limit. Nu Lang was shocked. He never thought that Yang Kai's current speed would be so fast. Hurriedly retreating, it swept out its claws in an attempt to block Yang Kai's path. Kai Yang's burning right fist met that hand, and with a whistling sound, smashed into Nu Lang's 5 fingers. Crack! A crisp sound echoed, followed by Nu Lang's terrified scream. His body flew up like a kite. After he landed on the ground, he felt a heart-piercing pain from his 5 fingers. He looked around and found that his 5 fingers were twisted, and he couldn't straighten them anymore. His fingers were full of burns and his bones were broken. Not only that, there was also a flow of fierce and overbearing yuan qi invading his body, burning his meridians and flesh. Nu Lang didn't dare to be careless. He quickly extended his other hand and hit his arm a few times to stop the yuan qi from invading his body. As soon as he finished this action, a light flashed in front of him. He raised his head and found that Yang Kai was approaching him. The flames on his fists were getting brighter. How could Nu Lang dare to fight? At this moment, he knew that he, who had just reached the first level of the Qi transformation realm, couldn't beat Yang Kai, the cultivator of the initial element realm. Using all of his strength, Nu Lang moved his feet and moved backward. At the same time, he let out a long shout. His shout was mixed with panic and fear, spreading far and wide. Flames suddenly appeared under Kai Yang's feet, and his speed suddenly increased to a level that even surprised him. Like a shadow, he chased after Nu Lang and fiercely punched him again and again. Bam, bam, bam. Nu Lang took several punches in a row. He couldn't resist at all. His head was dizzy and his consciousness was blurred. After 50 steps, Nu Lang finally understood that he couldn't get rid of Yang Kai's pursuit. At this moment, the young man's blood was stimulated. He suddenly stopped and shouted with a ferocious face, "Yang Kai, don't push me too far. Eagle soars the sky. Die for me." This was Nu Lang's most powerful claw attack. He poured all of his yuan qi into his hands, crossing them in front of his body to protect himself. Then he aimed at Yang Kai's chest and fiercely tore it to both sides. The full power of a first level of the Qi transformation realm cultivator was something that even Yang Kai didn't dare to underestimate. Feeling the enormous killing power hidden in the 2 hands, Yang Kai's face became serious. If he were to be caught by him, Kai Yang reckoned that his chest would be torn apart. In that split second, Kai Yang instinctively leaned his body to the side. His fiery fists continued to smash towards Nu Lang's face without losing any momentum. Both of them were risking their lives. This was destined to be the last attack that would give them a chance to live. Either you die or I die. Bang! When Kai Yang's fist landed on Nu Lang's face, his delicate facial features immediately distorted. Nu Lang's entire body was thrown backwards by the force of Kai Yang's punch. After flipping a few times in the air, he finally landed on the ground with a thud. Swoosh! Nu Lang's 2 claws didn't disappoint as they swept towards Yang Kai's chest. However, the expected scene of Yang Kai being cut open didn't happen. Only 10 bloody scars were left on his chest, 5 shallow and 5 deep. At the crucial moment, Yang Kai's side move played a crucial role. One of Nu Lang's finger bones had been broken just now. When the eagle soars the sky was used, the strength of the 2 hands was definitely different. Yang Kai's side move was to control the difference between the light and heavy forces, so that Nu Lang's 2 hands couldn't exert force at the same time, which was equivalent to breaking his attack. This kind of response was the result of his mind, and was also an instinctive reaction. During the battle, Yang Kai didn't think too much about it. However, it had to be said that this kind of counterattack was indeed ingenious. The scene suddenly quieted down. The result of this desperate battle had been decided. Yang Kai was gasping for breath, but his body was still full of evil aura. Nu Lang was sprawled on the ground like a dead dog. His face was badly mutilated. He resentfully stared at Yang Kai, who was walking towards him step by step. "Even if I become a ghost, I won't let you go." Nu Lang swallowed the blood in his mouth and said ferociously. Yang Kai looked down at him, lifted one of his big feet, and stomped down. "Ha ha, the blood group's people will hear my message. They will come to kill." Nu Lang hadn't finished his sentence when his neck was crushed by Yang Kai, and he died. The 5 people of Storm House were completely annihilated, calmly standing at the same place, feeling the boiling blood and fighting spirit in his body. Yang Kai's face was grave and stern as he pondered for a moment. A crazy idea emerged in his mind. Chapter 101. A long roar rang out as Yang Kai's figure became wild, like a bloodthirsty beast, his roar piercing through the sky and echoing endlessly throughout the mountain valley. "Come and fight! Bloody battle gangs, trash!" This was an invitation to fight, a blatant provocation. "I'm here, waiting for you." He knew that if he stayed, there would be trouble. After all, Nu Lang had used his roar to signal them. Although this valley covered an area of dozens of miles, it was late at night, so those people must have heard his roar and were rushing here. At this time, the safest way was to leave. After 3 battles and killing 5 people, Yang Kai's mental and physical strength had been greatly consumed. His body had also suffered a lot of injuries. How could he confront the bloody battle gangs group again? Leaving this place, waiting for an opportunity to recover, was undoubtedly the right way to go. But Yang Kai couldn't leave, and he wouldn't leave, because now his mental strength had reached its peak. Once he left this place, there would be a feeling of fear in his heart. Once he had this feeling, how could the unyielding will be useful? Without the support of the unyielding will, he was just an initial element 4th level cultivator. It was time to chase after the enemy. Yang Kai wanted to use his peak power to give the bloody battle gang's disciples a big surprise. Of course, all of this was based on the fact that Xia Ningchang's deduction was correct. The bloody battle gang's group wasn't comparable to the Storm House's group. Most of them were separation and reunion level experts. Normally, this level of cultivator could easily kill Yang Kai. But now they were sealed by the 9 innate locks formation, so it was hard to say how much strength they had left. After hearing Kai Yang's roar, Xia Ningchang suddenly opened her eyes. Her heart, that had been filled with nervousness and regret, was finally able to relax. He didn't die. He didn't die. Xia Ningchang almost cried. She had been worried about Yang Kai's safety. She was afraid that he wouldn't come back and leave her here alone. His strength was so low, and the other side had so many people. How could he resist? Ever since Yang Kai left, Xia Ningchang had been blaming himself and regretting that he should have risked his life to keep him here. He should not have let him go. However, not to mention that time. Even now, her condition was not very good. If Yang Kai was determined to leave, she could not stop him at all. Because he wanted to come to this place, he had to involve him in this huge danger. Xia Ningchang felt extremely guilty. The naive girl only took the blame for herself. She didn't think that whether it was Storm House or Blood Group, it was all because of Yang Kai that they chased after her. As for the culprit, it was still Kai Yang. However, Xia Ningchang was relieved that his junior brother was safe and sound. Moreover, his voice was mixed with a kind of fearless fighting spirit, a kind of inspiring signal. Although he didn't know what he was facing now, Xia Ningchang felt that the only thing he could do was to quickly recover and then go out to help him and save him. On the other side of the valley, when Fei Chen, who was dissolving the yin qi chains in his body, and Long Hui, who was guarding beside him, also heard Yang Kai's roar clearly. When this roar came, when Fei Chen could not help but frown, his mind was interrupted, and he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. This beast, when Fei Chen was furious, he was at a critical moment, but was disturbed by his roar, and actually suffered a little internal injury because of it. Hall Master Wen, how is the dissolving? Long Hui seemed to ask with concern. When Fei Chen slowly shook his head. Not good. This thing is beyond my knowledge. I don't know whose disciple that girl is to be able to set up such a marvelous array. The 3 yin qi chains not only sealed the flow of yuan qi in his meridians, but also sealed his dantian, causing his strength to only reach the qi transformation stage 3rd level. Just now, he had used up a lot of energy, so his strength had decreased by a lot. One Fei Chen was so angry that he couldn't wait to capture Yang Kai, and that girl, and kill them 100 times over. A dignified Yuan Qi stage 5th level expert was actually played by 2 juniors to such an extent. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? Hall Masterwin, don't worry. That brat dared to expose his whereabouts. I think he should be dead by now. Long Hui's expression was firm, and a cold smile appeared on his face. When Fei Chen didn't answer because he understood the meaning behind Yang Kai's roar. It wasn't the roar of a dead end, but an unstoppable roar filled with battle intent. However, a mere initial element stage 4th level cultivator. What are you so arrogant for? Therefore, although when Fei Chen felt that something was wrong, he didn't take it to heart. He also thought that Yang Kai was a cornered beast that would fight and die without a doubt. Everyone in the valley had different thoughts. Outside the valley, a white-haired old man suddenly flew in. This old man's breath was long, and his yuan qi waves were hidden, making people unable to see through his depth. However, his speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he had already flown over 100 feet. The old man's face was full of worry and anxiety. He looked up at the sky and was extremely regretful. Oh no, I can't make it in time. My little Grandin, please don't open the array too early. The old man muttered to himself as he ran. This old man was the shopkeeper of the contribution hall, Meng Wuya. Meng Wuya felt that he had really lost face. That night, he had tried his best to persuade his disciple not to come to the 9th Yin congregation ground. After all, it wasn't necessary to refine the 9th Yin Yuan condensing due to advance to the Yuan Qi realm. Xia Ningchang was obedient and agreed. Meng Wuya was in a good mood. Xia Ningchang had prepared a few dishes and a few pots of wine. Meng Wuya drank and ate while talking about Yang Kai's faults, trying to make his disciple stay away from him. This was because Meng Wuya could see that his disciple still cared about Yang Kai. It wasn't love between a man and a woman, but a kind of protection. However, this wasn't a good sign, and Meng Wuya wanted to nip it in the bud. All these years, his disciple had been very well behaved and obedient. Meng Wuya treated her like a treasure. He kept her in his mouth, but was afraid she would melt. He held her in his hand, but was afraid she would fall. This caused her to be too naive and didn't understand the sinister nature of people's hearts. Meng Wuya was worried. What if Yang Kai had bad intentions and seduced his disciple? This was the time when one was young and ignorant of love. Once his disciple fell in love, things would become difficult. Therefore, Meng Wuya had ulterior motives. Although he felt ashamed, his mouth was full of scolding Yang Kai. He said that he was lecherous and heartless, and that he blamed all the bad things on Yang Kai. He did everything he could to smear his reputation. At the end, Meng Wuya sternly warned Xia Ningchang, "Disciple, you must stay away from this kind of person." Chapter 102. As soon as he finished speaking, Meng Wuya's vision blurred, and he fell head first onto the plate of food in front of him. By the time he woke up, a long time had passed. Xia Ningchang had used a lot of medicine. Meng Wuya wanted to cry, but had no tears to shed after being plotted against by his own disciple. After realizing the seriousness of the matter, Meng Wuya didn't even bother to wash his face, and directly left High Heaven Pavilion to rush here. He was extremely regretful. If he had known that his disciple was so determined, he wouldn't have been so cheap as to provoke her impression of Yang Kai. Wasn't that just looking for trouble? Although his disciple had countless treasures that could help her avoid many dangers, this was still inside Black Wind Mountain. What if she encountered one or two powerful monster beasts that didn't know what to do and ate her? If he had followed along, he wouldn't have to worry about this at all. Meng Wuya really wanted to slap himself a few times. Who asked you to be so cheap? He was still 10 li away from the 9 in congregation ground, but Meng Wuya could already feel the cold in chi coming from there. While in midair, he anxiously raised his head to look. He saw that the in chi in the valley was surging, but it seemed to be bound by an invisible energy and couldn't escape. Seeing this, Meng Wuya's heart finally calmed down. The 9 in 8 locks formation had been activated, which meant that his disciple had safely arrived here. Phew, at least there weren't any big mistakes. Meng Wuya breathed heavily. Only the heavens knew how much he had been on the road these past few days. His heart had almost broken down. Not long after, Meng Wuya arrived outside the valley, but he didn't go in. He looked into the valley with rapt attention, but the in chi inside was too heavy. He couldn't see or hear anything, and even his divine sense couldn't probe inside. Since the 9 in 8 locks formation had been activated, it meant that his disciple had already started. He just had to wait for her good news. Being bound by the formation, the people inside couldn't come out, and the people outside couldn't go in. Although Meng Wuya could break the formation, if he did, his disciple's efforts would be in vain. And I just have to wait. Meng Wuya consoled himself. This time, he was wrong. The reason why Xia Ningchang wanted to open the array ahead of time was not to deal with the 9th in yuan condensing dew, but to deal with the bloody group situation. Meng Wuya didn't know that Xia Ningchang was extremely weak right now, and Yang Kai was covered in blood. Both of them were in great danger. If he knew, he would definitely break the formation at all costs and slaughter Wen Fei Chen and the others inside 1,000 times over. You dare to even have ideas about this old man's disciple? Fuck your 18 generations of ancestors. Sometimes, things were just so miraculous. It was so close, yet so far away. In the valley, Yang Kai was still standing quietly in the same place, his back as straight as a javelin, waiting for the arrival of the powerful enemy. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, the sound of clothes flapping could be heard all around them. He's finally here. Yang Kai's face gradually became dignified. He turned his head and looked at the place where Xia Ningchang was hiding. He didn't know if he could survive this battle, but he had done his best, so he had no regrets. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 figures almost simultaneously arrived at Yang Kai's side. Then, another person arrived. The first 3 were separation and reunion boundary experts of the bloody group. The last one was only at the chi transforming 9th level, so his speed was naturally slower. After the 4 arrived, they didn't say anything. Instead, they stared at Yang Kai in shock, because they found that in just an hour, this youth who was only at the initial element boundary 4th level actually had the strength of a peak initial element boundary expert. What was going on? Nu Lang's body was under his feet. His neck was broken, and his death was miserable. His eyes were bulging. Apparently, he didn't expect that he would die in this place. He died with his eyes wide open. In this valley where the cold wind blew, it made people feel creepy. Did you kill this person? A separation and reunion boundary expert of the bloody group asked. What about the most powerful person and your young Master Long? Yang Kai didn't answer his question. Instead, he turned his head and looked around. He found that there was something wrong with the number of people. Originally, the bloody group had 7 people. In addition to Wen Fei Chen and Long Hui, the other Qi transforming boundary disciple had been killed by Xia Ningchang's Yin Qi shackles. Therefore, there were only 4 people left. Humph, to deal with you. Hall Master Wen and young Master Long don't need to act. The person who spoke before coldly snorted. This person wasn't very old. He was about 25 to 26 years old and was in the prime of youth. Bloody group. Haha, you only know how to bully others. Yang Kai ridiculed. The youth's face was ruthless. To deal with you, I alone am enough. Although more than half of his strength had been sealed by the Yin Chi shackles, he still had the foundation of a separation and reunion boundary expert. If he really wanted to fight, he would definitely be more powerful than a Qi transforming boundary expert. How could he not deal with Yang Kai? It's useless to talk big. Why don't you try? Yang Kai looked at him contemptuously. He also felt that these people's strength had been greatly reduced. They couldn't compare to the pressure they gave him before. Moreover, the Yuan Qi fluctuations on their bodies were quite unstable. The three people who came first were estimated to have the same strength as Nu Lang. Even if they were strong, they wouldn't be much stronger. The one who came later was slightly weaker than Nu Lang. If it was one-on-one, Yang Kai was sure that he could win. As long as he killed one of them, then the rest would be much easier. Little brat, you are so arrogant. Let your grandfather teach you a lesson. The youth was really smart. Before he finished speaking, he was about to come forward, seeing that the plan was about to succeed. As long as the youth came within 10 steps of him, Yang Kai would kill him even if he was injured. But at this moment, another separation and reunion boundary expert's voice sounded. Junior brother Yuan Lang, don't fall into his trap. The youth immediately stopped and looked at Yang Kai coldly. Then he said, Yes, brother Kai, he is the only one here. We don't know where the girl is. She has many tricks, so we have to be careful. Moreover, this brat has the strength to kill Nu Lang. I'm afraid he has been pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. Quickly capture him and force him to tell us where the girl is. Brother Kai said with a vigilant look. He waved his hand and said, Let's go together. 4 against 1, and the opponent was a cultivator at the initial element realm. Even if he had some tricks, he wouldn't be able to use them. He would definitely be captured. For shadows moved almost at the same time. They surrounded Yang Kai in the north, southeast, and west. Their ferocious killing moves covered his head. Facing such a dangerous situation, Yang Kai wasn't afraid. He laughed and said, I told you that the blood group only knows how to bully people with numbers. You still don't admit it. Yuan Lang, the youth who had almost fallen into the trap, blushed. While releasing his killing moves, he angrily shouted, Stinky brat, you have a sharp tongue. Wait until I capture you. I will show you. Chapter 103. You don't have the qualifications. Yang Kai roared. His Yuan Qi burst out from his body. His whole body was like a burning fireball, emitting a threatening heat. While speaking, Yang Kai and Yuan Lang's palms collided. With a muffled sound, Yang Kai staggered back, while Yuan Lang let out a strange cry and flew back. Retreating 3 steps, Yang Kai instantly fell into the encirclement of the other 3 people. Seeing that the 3 attacks were about to hit him, Yang Kai hurriedly lowered his body, avoiding the attack of another separation and reunion boundary expert. At the same time, he exposed his back to the weakest blood group disciple. With an earth-shattering momentum, both of his palms were aimed at the chest of the most vigilant brother Kai. It was this person who had just warned Yuan Lang, so he did not fall into Yang Kai's trap. Among the 4 people, he was the leader, so his strength was naturally the strongest. Even if his cultivation was sealed, he still had the strength of Qi transforming 2nd level. Therefore, Yang Kai made up his mind to kill him first. As long as he died, the remaining 3 people were nothing to be afraid of. In the time it took to take a breath, Kai Yang had already engaged in a confrontation with the 4 of them. Brother Kai saw that Yang Kai did not care about his own safety and could not help but frown. Although he did not know what Yang Kai wanted to do, he had a bad premonition in his heart. This pair of palms, there must be a hidden secret. Retreat. This person was also quite decisive. Although he didn't believe that Kai Yang could cause him any harm, for the sake of caution, he immediately retreated. At the same time, he raised his hand and sent out a palm strike towards Kai Yang, wanting to test his opponent's strength. His palms had not yet been pushed out, but he found that Yang Kai's mouth was showing a trace of a cold smile. Not good. I fell into his trap. In the next moment, he saw that Yang Kai's palms were fluttering left and right, unexpectedly avoiding his block. With a fearless attitude, they were still aiming at his chest. His two palms would certainly hit him, but his own attack would also hit him. Was this an injury for an injury? Before he could finish his thoughts, Yang Kai's palms changed again. The two burning palms suddenly became blood red, as if there was some kind of liquid covering them. The temperature of the palms increased by another level. There was no way to dodge. Brother Kai's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. His yuan chi fiercely revolved. Let's see who will die after this palm. In any case, I am a separation and reunion boundary expert, although most of my strength has been sealed, and I feel like a tiger that has fallen to the plains. How could the quality and density of my yuan chi be inferior to yours? Bang, bang, bang sound. Senior Brother Kai's palm landed on Kai Yang's chest. At the same time, Kai Yang's two palms also landed on his own chest. In an instant, the yuan chi's guarding chest violently churned, as if his chest feel. This kid's yuan chi is so pure. This person was shocked. He thought that if it weren't for the fact that his cultivation level was higher than his, he might have been injured by this palm. But before he could recover from his shock, he felt Yang Kai's palm once again emit a scorching heat. As the heat spread out, Brother Kai felt a sharp pain in his chest. He vaguely felt as if his body had been penetrated. His internal organs also started to churn. Get out of my way. Brother Kai flew into a rage. The power of his palm burst forth, and Yang Kai was no longer able to withstand it. He flew backwards like a rag sack. Yang Kai's body had not yet landed on the ground, but the weakest blood group disciple had already stabbed him with his sword. At the critical moment, Yang Kai twisted his body, and the sword directly pierced his shoulder, opening a bloody hole in his shoulder. This was not the end. Taking advantage of the fact that Yang Kai was injured, another separation and reunion boundary expert finally found the opportunity to kick Yang Kai's ribs, directly sending him flying. A moment ago, Yang Kai had dodged his attack, which made him feel somewhat ashamed. At this moment, he naturally did not show any mercy. At the same time Yang Kai was sent flying, a bottle suddenly slipped from his chest and fell to the ground. In the air, Yang Kai spat out a mouthful of blood and staggered to the ground. He looked at the bottle that fell from his chest, but he did not dare to go forward and pick it up. A flame suddenly appeared under his feet, and as fast as lightning, he disappeared into the jungle. Yuan Lang saw all of this and quickly rushed forward to pick up the bottle. Yang Kai's laughter came from afar. Ha ha ha, blood group, separation, and reunion boundary. Nothing more than this. Why did he run away? Several people from the blood group looked at each other in dismay. Yang Kai had let out a roar to attract them, and had been waiting here with an awe-inspiring and insufferably arrogant attitude. Originally, they thought that Yang Kai had something to rely on, but now he unexpectedly ran away. Wasn't this thunder big, but the rain small? Several people really thought that he had some extraordinary means. Now, looking at the direction he ran, they could not help but snort. Chase, he is seriously injured. He absolutely won't be able to hold on for long. Yuan Lang bitterly swung his palm and fiercely said, he had suffered a small loss when he fought with Yang Kai. He did not expect that Yang Kai's palm would be so difficult to resolve. After he had resolved it, the battle was actually over. From the beginning to the end, only 3 breaths of time had passed, and the speed was so fast that it made people stunned. After saying this, Yuan Lang immediately chased in the direction of Yang Kai, and the others also hurriedly followed. But before they could run a few steps, the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground suddenly came from behind them. They turned their heads in surprise and saw that the strongest of them all, senior brother Kai, was actually lying on the ground, motionless, facing the yellow earth with his back to heaven and earth. "Brother, what happened to you?" Yuan Lang was surprised and asked, but did not get any response. "What's going on?" The one with the lowest strength was also confused. Just a moment ago, Brother Kai exchanged a blow with Yang Kai, but he should not have been seriously injured, right? The situation is not right. The third person frowned and hurriedly walked back. He turned the body of this senior martial brother over and suddenly exclaimed, "Ah, how is Brother Kai?" Yuan Lang came back and asked. He was stunned for a moment, because at this moment his brother's skin was red, and the blood under his skin seemed to be boiling. His eyes were bulging, and he looked almost the same as New Lang's. At this moment, Brother Kai was not breathing. There was a finger-sized hole in his chest, and blood was gurgling out of it. "It's hot." The bloody group disciple who was holding Brother Kai quickly put down the body. Once the body hit the ground, it unexpectedly burst open, and hot blood sputtered out, sprinkling on the ground and steaming into a blood mist. The three people who were still alive were drenched from head to toe. Their blood was mixed with scorching primordial chi. The three people's expressions were extremely horrified. They did not expect that the strongest person in the group, Brother Kai, would die in such an inexplicable way. How did he die? When did Yang Kai kill him? The three people foolishly stood in the same place, blankly looking at their dead brother on the ground. Their expressions were very interesting. The four experts of the bloody group had attacked together to deal with Yang Kai, but unexpectedly, one of them was killed by him in a flash, and he was only hit by a sword, a kick, and a palm. Although he was seriously injured, he still managed to escape. Chapter 104. The three of them couldn't accept this fact, no matter how hard they tried. The person lying on the ground was a separation and reunion boundary expert. This was a motherfucker separation and reunion boundary expert. How could he be killed by an initial element boundary cultivator? There was a gap of 2 realms between the two of them. This was simply a huge joke. Although Brother Kai's cultivation was sealed by that woman, and he had to use his Yuan Qi and mind to resist the invasion of the Yin Qi in the valley, he should still be able to display the strength of a Qi transformation boundary expert, right? How could he be killed? The three people's faces turned green and red, and they were still a little frightened. Each of them was thinking, what if Yang Kai's target wasn't his brother, but them? What would the result be? Without a doubt, they would also die here. At this moment, Yuan Lang finally understood Brother Kai's wisdom and vigilance. If it wasn't for Brother Kai's warning, he was afraid that he would be the first to die at Yang Kai's hands. "Brother, how did you die?" The weakest cultivator finally opened his mouth and asked, breaking the awkward silence. After this question was asked, the three people suddenly looked at each other in dismay. The scene of the fight just now replayed in their minds, and they finally found traces of Yang Kai's attack. It was that palm strike that traded injury for injury. This was Kai Yang's only offensive move in this battle. "He's that strong," one of them asked in horror. "This isn't his ability. He must have hidden some powerful secret treasure. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to break through Brother's Yuan Qi defense and kill him in one blow." Yuan Lang looked at him and gradually calmed down as he analyzed. The other person also nodded in agreement. If he didn't rely on the power of the secret treasure, how could Yang Kai do this with his own strength? Even if Yang Kai stood up and admitted it, they wouldn't believe it. The amount of Yuan Qi needed to activate this secret treasure must be enormous, and his strength is only in the initial element realm, so he only has one chance to attack. After the attack, no matter whether it succeeds or not, he has to escape immediately. Yuan Lang's face was gloomy. The more he thought about it, the clearer his thoughts became. His thinking gradually became more agile, and he actually felt like he had the pearl of wisdom in his hands. His speculation was also quite consistent with Yang Kai's suspicious actions. Yuan Lang's tone was firm. So, the current him, even if he still has some strength, he is just an arrow at the end of its flight. He definitely won't be able to use that artifact again. Adding on the fact that he has suffered such a serious injury, he is no longer a threat. The other two also felt that his analysis was very reasonable, and they couldn't help but feel relieved. It turned out that he was only relying on an artifact to achieve this level. How frightening! If his strength was so monstrous that even Brother Kai could easily kill him, then they should just wash their necks clean and stretch out their necks. Why should they linger on while at death's door? The blood group disciple with the lowest strength said, "Brother has been killed. Should we go back and report it?" Yuan Lang turned his head to look at him and lightly reprimanded, "Why go back? If we don't report it, I'm afraid it's not appropriate." This person hesitated. The other person thoughtfully looked at the youth and suddenly laughed. He said to the lowest strength disciple, "Junior Brother Wu, you don't understand Brother Yuan's intention." Junior Brother Wu's face was full of confusion. He turned his head to look at this person, and then turned his head to look at Yuan Lang, puzzled. Yuan Lang chuckled. "Junior Brother Ye's mind is so meticulous, I can't hide anything from you." Junior Brother Yi also laughed heartily. "Great minds think alike. That's all." Junior Brother Wu looked at the two of them speaking in riddles, but he couldn't understand the key point. He couldn't help but helplessly say, "Two brothers, can't you explain things in simple terms?" Yuan Lang looked at him, and then said, "Junior Brother Wu, what do you think about the level of the artifact that Yang Kai relied on?" Junior Brother Wu listened for a moment, and then slowly replied, "Surrounded by the four of us, he was able to kill Brother Kai in one blow. The level of the artifact is certainly not low. At the very least, it is an Earth-grade mid-level artifact. It is very likely to be an Earth-grade high-level artifact." They had all seen Xia Ningchang use a heaven-grade defensive artifact. At this moment, Yang Kai had an Earth-grade defensive artifact. What was the big deal? Earth-grade defensive artifact was Junior Brother Wu's lowest evaluation. So this speculation was reasonable. Yuan Lang nodded slightly. "If we report this matter to Hall Master Wen, what do you think the final result will be?" Junior Brother Wu almost instinctively said, "Yang Kai will die, and the artifact will be taken by Hall Master Wen." Halfway through his sentence, he suddenly understood everything. If Hall Master Wen knew that Yang Kai had an Earth-grade artifact, would they still have a share? That woman's heaven-grade artifact had already been reserved by young Master Long Hui. Even if Hall Master Wen couldn't eat the meat, he still had to drink the soup, right? As for these brothers, they probably wouldn't even be able to lick the bottom of the soup. At most, when they returned, Hall Master Wen would reward them with some gold and silver. This time, after experiencing such danger, several of their brothers had died. Could it be that this was the only benefit they could get? Even if they worked hard for others, they still had to get something in return. Just now, they had been on the brink of death. Even now, their hearts were still beating wildly. How could this be made up for by some gold and silver? Moreover, Hall Master Wen had always been stingy. Even if he rewarded them, he wouldn't give them much. "Brothers, what do you mean?" Junior Brother Wu tentatively asked. Yuan Lang and Junior Brother Yi looked at each other. Junior Brother Yi nodded slightly. "Whatever Brother Yuan says, we will do." Yuan Lang laughed. "Good. Since the two junior brothers don't have any objections, then we won't report it." "Good." The two nodded. As for the artifact in Yang Kai's hands, Yuan Lang smiled and turned to look at the two junior brothers. "Whoever can kill him and avenge Brother Kai can have that artifact. What do you think?" Junior Brother Yi nodded. "Then we will do as Brother Yuan says. Are we going to split up?" Junior Brother Wu was the weakest. Just now, when he saw Brother Kai die on the spot, he naturally panicked. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to deal with Yang Kai one-on-one. Junior brother Yi said, "What are you afraid of? Yang Kai has activated the artifact once. How could he have any Yuan Qi left? Moreover, he had a fierce battle with the Stormhouse's people and was wounded badly by us. Anyone who meets him can kill him easily." Junior brother Wu agreed with him. Before they came here, Yang Kai had a fierce battle with Nu Lang. He must have consumed a lot of his Yuan Qi, and they had seen his wounds. In this harsh environment, he still had to use his Yuan Qi and mind to resist the Yin Qi invasion. He was afraid that his strength had been reduced by 70 to 80%. If they met him, they could kill him easily. Now, instead of saying that they wanted to kill Yang Kai to avenge Brother Kai, it was better to say that they wanted to find the Earth-grade artifact in his hands. Whoever found him first would get the artifact. How could they move together? Thinking about this, Junior brother Wu's breath became hot. Chapter 105. After they finished their discussion and were about to take action, Junior brother Yi suddenly looked at Yuan Lang and said, "Brother Yuan, when Yang Kai was escaping just now, something seemed to have fallen out. What is it?" Yuan Lang was stunned for a moment, then chuckled. Junior brother Yi is quite observant. As he spoke, he opened his palm and revealed the bottle. He said, "This should be a bottle of pills. Can I take a look?" Junior brother Yi smiled slightly. Yang Kai and that woman both had high-grade secret treasures on them, so their value was not low. When this bottle fell out, Yang Kai was obviously reluctant to part with it. A pill that could make him reluctant to part with it was definitely valuable. Because of this, Junior brother Yi didn't want this thing to be monopolized by Yuan Lang. Everyone participated in the battle, so naturally, everyone who saw it should have a share. Sure, Yuan Lang also knew what Junior brother Yi was thinking, so naturally, he wouldn't monopolize the spoil of war. As he spoke, he opened the bottle and looked inside. He was immediately surprised. It seems to be a Yang attribute pill. Yuan Lang's face showed some joy. Junior brother Yi and Junior brother Wu also became excited. "Really? You'll know when you see it," Yuan Lang said as he poured out some pills from the bottle and then flicked them to the two junior brothers. "It really is a Yang attribute pill." Junior brother Wu was very happy. As soon as the pills entered his hand, he felt the chill in his body disperse a lot. He didn't even need to use his Yuan Qi to resist the invasion of the Yin Qi. This pill was simply the nemesis of the Yin Qi in the valley. No wonder Yang Kai was reluctant to part with it. In this kind of harsh environment, the most important thing was this kind of Yang attribute pill. If he lost this thing, it would only make things worse. Yuan Lang shook the bottle and said, "We've already divided the pills, but junior brothers, these pills may have hidden secrets. Don't eat them. Just carry them with you to ward off the cold. Brother will take his leave first." After all, this was a pill left behind by Yang Kai. What if there was poison in it? Although they weren't as meticulous as Brother Kai, they weren't stupid enough to eat the enemy's food. After that, Yuan Lang used his movement technique and disappeared without a trace. Immediately after, the other two also put the pills into their pockets, and each of them chased after the direction in which Yang Kai disappeared. Yang Kai was like a ferocious beast licking its wounds. He quietly hid in the crown of a tree and tried his best to restrain his aura. His eyes vigilantly scanned the surroundings. His condition was very bad. After the battle with the 5 disciples of Stormhouse, his body had suffered some injuries. Just now, under the siege of the 4 people from Blood Group, his injuries were much more serious. Especially when the sword pierced through his shoulder, it must have injured his muscles and bones. Because of this, Yang Kai's left hand was somewhat unable to exert any strength. In order to prevent those people from following the trail of blood, Kai Yang had already used his Yang liquid to cauterize all of his wounds, sealing the flow of blood. Although the unyielding will allowed him to maintain his strength at the peak, in the end, he was still an initial element boundary fourth stage cultivator. After the continuous battle, his physical strength and spirit consumption were enormous. If not for his unyielding will, he would have already collapsed. Recalling the dangerous battle a moment ago, Yang Kai couldn't help but secretly sneer. That brother Kai was worthy of being a separation and reunion boundary expert, although more than half of his cultivation was sealed. Yang Kai still used a full 10 drops of Yang liquid to penetrate the Yuan Qi seal in his body and give him a fatal blow. But it was worth it, although it was difficult to condense 10 drops of Yang liquid. It was not a waste to exchange the life of a separation and reunion boundary expert. In this adversity, Yang Kai's mind was clearer than ever. He understood that if he failed, not only would he lose his life, even Xia Ningchang would be implicated. This was a matter of great importance. How could Yang Kai dare to relax? In addition to Long Hui and the strongest person in the blood group, there were still 3 people left. These 3 people's strength was not as good as Brother Kai's. If it was one-on-one, Yang Kai was not afraid. But if they joined forces, this matter would be very difficult. Know yourself and know your enemy. Then you will be victorious in 100 battles. Yang Kai had to figure out the movement, route of the 3 people from the blood group, and the direction of their attack. Only then could he come up with a corresponding plan to kill them. Therefore, before he left, he purposely left behind a bottle of medicinal pills. It could be said that the main purpose of the battle just now was to hide the traces of the pill he had left behind. Secondly, it was to kill that senior brother Kai. Fortunately, both of these goals were successfully accomplished. What he left behind was a bottle of mysterious Yang pills. A few days ago, he found more than 10 mysterious Yang blood flowers, and Xia Ningchang helped him refine them because the Dantian Yang liquid was abundant. And because they were in a hurry, Yang Kai did not take them. He did not think that they would come in handy now. Sometimes it wasn't necessary to eat a medicinal pill in order for something to happen. Yang Kai wanted to tell them that even if they carried the Dan in their arms, there was still a problem. He believed that his plan would succeed. After all, this was the 9th Yin congregation ground, where the Yin Qi was very strong. Suddenly, there was a bottle of Yang attribute Dan, so he did not need to think about what those people would do. As long as they carried the mysterious Yang pills, he could rely on the origin of Yang seal to detect their location. In this way, the initiative was in his hands. After concealing himself for a moment, the Yang origin seal on his chest reacted. Yang Kai's expression turned cold as he hurriedly held his breath and suppressed his heartbeat. Not long after, a person flashed from below. Yang Kai looked at him and frowned. Why was there only one person? After waiting for a moment, not far away, another person hurriedly passed by. After a short while, a third person suddenly came to the tree where Yang Kai was hiding. Yang Kai quietly looked down and found that this person was actually the weakest blood group disciple. This person looked around for a moment and quickly disappeared. Strange. How could these 3 people be separated? Yang Kai frowned and thought hard, but he could not understand. How could he have known that these 3 people only thought he was an arrow at the end of its flight and that he had a powerful Earth-grade artifact in his possession? They simply wanted to see who would be lucky enough to find him. It was no wonder that these 3 people thought this way. If it was an ordinary initial element cultivator, the amount of Yuan Qi stored in their body would not be much. If they really went through a few life and death battles, the Yuan Qi would naturally not be much left. But Yang Kai was different. The amount of Yuan Qi stored in his meridians was not much compared to other initial element cultivators. But he had a lot of Yang liquid in his Dantian. Before he left, Yang Kai stored more than 40 drops of Yang liquid in his Dantian. It did not matter if the Yuan Qi in his meridians was depleted. A drop of Yang liquid could completely replenish it, making him full of energy again. It could be said that as long as the Dantian had reserves and his physical and mental strength could keep up, Yong Kai was a tireless fighting machine. If Brother Kai was still alive, with his cautiousness and caution, he would definitely not let his people act separately, and give Yong Kai the opportunity to kill them one by one. But Yong Kai had just killed him, and now it was Yuan Lang's turn to make the decision. Naturally, he did not think too much about it. Yong Kai did not understand the deep meaning of this, but now things were going more smoothly than he expected. How could he not grasp the opportunity in front of him? Chapter 106. After confirming that the other two were not nearby, Yong Kai jumped down from the treetop and followed Junior Brother Wu, who had the lowest strength. Junior Brother Wu was at the 9th level of the Qi transformation realm and could be considered a good expert. But now that his strength was sealed, he could only display less than 40% of his strength. At this moment, he was vigilantly searching for traces of Yong Kai in the jungle. Unfortunately, although he had followed his blood all the way here, it had already disappeared a few minutes ago. This mountain valley was densely covered with trees, so it was difficult to find a person. Junior Brother Wu did not let go of any suspicious place. From time to time he would look up at the treetops, but the light here was too dim, so it increased the difficulty of searching. He could not let his two brothers beat him to it. If Yong Kai was found by them first, then he would not have a share of the Earth-grade secret treasure. Earth-grade secret treasure. Junior Apprentice Brother Wu's heart began to burn with excitement. If he could possess such an artifact, then his status in the gang would definitely rise. By relying on this artifact, defeating a separation and reunion boundary martial artist would not be a difficult matter. While he was searching, he suddenly heard a rustling sound behind him. Junior Brother Wu turned around in horror and shouted, "Who is it?" At the same time, he looked around and clenched the long sword in his hand. He was secretly vigilant, but he did not find anything. From time to time, he heard a rustling sound, but it was actually the sound of a cold wind blowing the surrounding trees. He was being paranoid. Junior Brother Wu secretly laughed at himself. In this mountain valley, apart from the people of the blood group, there was only Yong Kai and that woman. These two people were currently powerless to protect themselves, so why would they run to their deaths? Chuckling, Junior Brother Wu turned around and prepared to continue forward. Who would have thought that just as he relaxed his mind, he would suddenly feel a burning sensation from the top of his head. At the same time, his whole body tightened as an aura of death rushed towards him. Looking up in surprise, Junior Brother Wu's eyes suddenly widened as he exclaimed, "Yong Kai." As soon as he finished speaking, Yong Kai had already landed on top of him. His head was down, and his feet were like a goshawk hunting for its prey. With the momentum of a pouncing attack, one of his palms ignited with a layer of bright red light as he slapped down towards the top of his head. This unforeseen event happened too quickly. Junior Brother Wu only had time to draw out a sword flower before Yong Kai's attack arrived. In his panic, Junior Brother Wu tilted his head to the side, avoiding the vital part of his head. With a boom, Yong Kai's palm landed on Junior Brother Wu's shoulder. With a crisp crack, Junior Brother Wu's entire arm sank down and broke. The burning Yuan Qi entered Junior Brother Wu's body, causing him to scream out in pain. He shook his long sword again and slashed towards Yong Kai's neck. Yong Kai flipped backwards in the air, the soles of his feet brushing against the sword. Narrowly avoiding this attack, after landing on the ground, he bounced off the ground like an agile snake and quickly approached Junior Brother Wu's arms. His two hands were like butterflies as they wrapped around his right hand that was holding the sword. Then, with a push and a pull, he broke his balance and directly flipped him to the ground. This series of movements was incomparably fast, dazzling to the eyes, but the connection was natural and smooth. Falling to the ground, Junior Brother Wu spat out a mouthful of blood. Yang Kai's knee pressed against his shoulder, and his two hands suddenly exerted force. Crack! Junior Brother Wu's right arm was also broken. With a miserable howl, Junior Brother Wu's hands were broken, and his whole body was trampled under Yang Kai's feet. Looking at him coldly, Kai Yang didn't have the slightest trace of emotion on his face. With a kick of his foot, he picked up Junior Brother Wu's sword, which had fallen to the ground. Then, aiming at Junior Brother Wu's chest, he pierced down. How could you? Junior Brother Wu looked at Yang Kai in disbelief with blood foam in his mouth. How could you still have the strength to fight? You're just an initial element cultivator. You should be exhausted. Brother Yuan, fuck you, Junior Brother Wu is dead because of you. This was the last thought in Junior Brother Wu's mind, and his eyes gradually lost their luster. After killing Junior Brother Wu, Yang Kai was slightly out of breath. The wounds on his body showed signs of splitting open, and blood once again gushed out. Not daring to delay, Yang Kai bent down and carefully searched Junior Brother Wu's body. Not long after, he found his mysterious yang pills. Not only that, this Junior Brother Wu also had some other valuables on him. Yang Kai pocketed half a bottle of Qi recovery pills and some banknotes. Carrying Junior Brother Wu's body, Yang Kai jumped onto a tree and hid the body in the canopy. Then he jumped down and ran in another direction. Time was of the essence. There were less than 4 hours before dawn, and he still had to kill at least 4 enemies. One of them was even an expert of the Yuan Qi realm. He still had a long way to go. With the improvement of his strength, the sensing range of the origin of Yang on his chest had also increased a lot. It was estimated that within 200 feet, Yang Kai could sense Yang Qi's reaction. 200 feet was already very far. Normally, those experts of the separation and reunion realm would have a keen perception. Naturally, no movement within 200 feet could escape their eyes and ears. But now, Yang Kai was the master of this 200 feet. After running for less than the time it took to burn a stick of incense, Yang Kai suddenly stopped. He felt the presence of another person. However, this person actually stayed in the same place and didn't move. He didn't know what he was doing. Yang Kai waited for a moment and found that he still didn't move. Moreover, Yang Kai also felt that the place where the person stopped was a bit strange. It was as if the Yin Qi in the valley was converging towards that place. Frowning, Yang Kai quietly crept up. After a short while, Yang Kai finally approached within 300 feet of the other person. Hiding behind a large tree, he quietly looked over. 300 feet away, a vague figure stopped there, and not far in front of him, there was a bright white thing blooming with light. This thing was like a small sun, illuminating everything in its vicinity. It wasn't large, only about the size of a pigeon's egg, but from inside it, there was a burst of bone-chilling coldness, a coldness that could even freeze one's soul. At this moment, this thing was spinning endlessly. As it spun, the Yin Qi in the valley seemed to be attracted by some kind of force and was rapidly rushing towards it. The 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew. Yang Kai almost instantly understood what this thing was. Although he had never seen it before, Yang Kai still recognized it at a glance. Xia Ning Chang had brought him to the 9th Yin congregation ground with the purpose of refining it. So this is what the 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew looks like. Yang Kai originally thought that it was a drop of dew, but now it seemed that this thing was quite intelligent and was indeed absorbing the Yin Qi of heaven and earth. Just as Yang Kai was secretly observing, the figure 300 feet away finally moved. This person was Junior Brother Yi. He tracked Yang Kai to no avail, but he didn't expect to find the 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew here. With his knowledge, he naturally didn't know the wonders of this thing, but he knew that this thing was a treasure. After quietly observing for a long time, he finally couldn't help but want to make a move. Chapter 107. As soon as he moved, Yang Kai naturally moved as well. At this moment, junior brother Ye's attention was completely attracted by the ninth yin yuan condensing dew, so it was a good time to launch a sneak attack. He never dreamed that Yang Kai could determine his position, and was bold enough to launch a sneak attack on him. A greedy look appeared on junior brother Ye's face. His body was as nimble as a cat, and his movements were silent. He approached the ninth yin yuan condensing dew little by little. The distance was getting closer and closer. 20 feet, 10 feet, 9 feet. The ninth yin yuan condensing dew was still in the same place, constantly absorbing the heaven and earth yin qi in the valley, stirring up the surrounding yin qi. When the distance between junior brother Yi and the ninth yin yuan condensing dew was only 5 feet, his yuan qi suddenly became violent. His hidden body rushed out like a cheetah pouncing on its prey. His eyes were full of fire, and he stretched out his hand to grab the ninth yin yuan condensing dew. Yang Kai also moved. His eyes were locked on junior brother Ye's body. His feet were like the wind, and he was holding the long sword that he had just robbed. Taking advantage of the opponent's unguarded state, he was ready to kill him from the side. Just when junior brother Yi thought that he was about to succeed, the ninth yin yuan condensing dew suddenly stopped absorbing yin qi. An extremely strong yin qi burst out from inside and rushed toward junior brother Yi. This change was so fast that junior brother Yi couldn't stop his footsteps. Junior brother Yi was shocked. He had just observed it for a long time. Although he was sure that this was a heaven and earth treasure, he didn't know that this thing had spirituality and could counterattack in the face of a crisis. Junior brother Yi was scared out of his wits for a moment. Feeling the oncoming cold air, he panicked. His yuan qi was activated, trying to resist the oncoming crisis. Just when he was ready to withstand the impact, the ninth yin yuan condensing dew suddenly shook and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The moment it disappeared, the surrounding light suddenly fell into darkness. As the light changed, junior brother Ye's vision was greatly affected. He couldn't see what was happening around him at all. It was at this moment that Yang Kai made his move. Although Yang Kai's vision was also affected, he could still roughly determine the enemy's position. Even if this stab didn't take his life, it definitely wouldn't let him have an easy time. Junior brother Ye's mind was completely focused on the cold air that was rushing towards him. How could he feel the killing intent coming from the side? The next moment, junior brother Ye's body swayed as the cold air hit him head-on. He felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, and his yuan qi was not running smoothly. He couldn't help but shiver. Before he could catch his breath, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his waist, as if he had been pierced by a sharp weapon. Junior brother Yi had a lot of experience in dealing with enemies. After all, he was a master of separation and reunion. Although his vision was blocked, he instinctively flew up and swept his leg in the direction of Yang Kai. With a muffled groan, Yang Kai was swept in the shoulder and flew out. The two people's heavy breathing sounded at the same time. At this moment, Yang Kai didn't need to hide his figure anymore. Gradually recovering his vision, junior brother Yi looked in the direction of Yang Kai with resentment. His body couldn't help but shiver. His hand covered his waist and ribs, and his figure staggered. At his waist, a long sword came out of his body. Yang Kai had used almost all of his strength just now. Junior brother Yi also had to use his yuan qi to resist the cold air. How could he guard against it? "It's you?" After seeing Yang Kai's face clearly, junior brother Ye's expression suddenly became interesting. He had just thought of several possibilities. One possibility was that Yuan Lang or junior brother Wu had sneak attacked him. In the face of benefits, it wasn't strange for fellow disciples to kill each other. Another possibility was that the woman wanted to kill him. Another possibility was that there was another group of people in this valley. But he never thought that the one who attacked him was actually Yang Kai, who they thought was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Ha ha! Yang Kai slowly got up and looked at him with a grim smile. He shook the shoulder that was hit and found that it wasn't serious. Then he walked over step by step without fear. Junior brother, Yi, was now an arrow at the end of its flight. How is this possible? Junior brother Ye's face gradually turned pale. Although I don't know what you're surprised about, it seems that all of this is very different from what you expected. Yang Kai said coldly, Junior brother Yi looked down and said with a surprised expression, "This is Junior brother Wu's sword. Yes, he's already dead. Now it's your turn. So, we were all fooled by you." At this moment, Junior brother Ye's heart was filled with a strong sense of unwillingness and humiliation. When brother Kai died at the hands of Yang Kai, it could be explained as the power of the secret treasure. But now, he was going to die at the hands of Yang Kai. He was at the separation and reunion level. Now he was going to be killed by a cultivator at the initial element level. What kind of world was this? Sullen, very sullen. With a cry, Junior brother Yi opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. His expression became more and more dispirited. The injuries on his body and the humiliation on his mind made him feel haggard and powerless, but he couldn't resist. "I have no enmity with you, but since you came to me, don't blame me for being ruthless." Yang Kai's expression was cold. He walked in front of Junior brother Yi and raised his palm to attack him. Junior brother Ye's eyes suddenly brightened, as if he had a final burst of strength. He pulled out the long sword at his waist, held it in his hand, and slashed at Yang Kai. Yang Kai lowered his body and hit Junior brother Ye's chin with an uppercut. Junior brother Ye's entire chin was immediately shattered. His body flew high into the air and then fell heavily to the ground. Without waiting for him to resist, Yang Kai rushed up and punched him twice. The Yuan Qi burst out, and Junior brother Yi was immediately killed. Standing up, Yang Kai sneered, "Playing tricks? I'm your grandfather." Obviously, Junior brother Yi just pretended to be weak. He wanted to let Yang Kai get close to him, so that he could kill him in one blow. But Yang Kai was already prepared. Even a rabbit would bite when cornered, not to mention he was a cultivator. Before the enemy was killed, any carelessness could cost him his life. After killing this person, Yang Kai searched his body as usual. He didn't find much, just 1 or 2 bottles of elixirs and some banknotes. After all, these people went out, so they couldn't bring too many things with them. He could use the elixirs himself, but there were several banknotes. Yang Kai didn't look at them carefully and directly stuffed them into his trouser pocket. Like before, he threw the person's body into a nearby tree. Yang Kai looked around and found that the 9-yin yuan condensing dew had long disappeared. Yang Kai also felt the cold yin energy that burst out of the 9-yin yuan condensing dew. It was an extremely overbearing yin energy. No wonder he was needed to help collect it. This thing was very intelligent and would escape when it felt something was wrong. Except for the yang attribute Yuan Qi, which was its nemesis, there was probably no good way to collect it. There were still more than 2 hours before dawn. He had to hurry, but before that, Yang Kai had to go back and ask Xia Ning Chang how to collect the 9-yin yuan condensing dew. Chapter 108. The 9th yin yuan condensing dew was a drifting thing, and the mountain valley was not small. If he was lucky enough to find it, he would be able to collect it. However, before coming here, Yang Kai had asked several times. Whether it was Xia Ning Chang or Old Man Meng, they did not answer. They only said that they would tell him when the time came. This made Yang Kai somewhat suspicious and puzzled. Now it was time to find out more. The location of Xia Ning Chang's hiding place, Kai Yang still remembered it clearly. He cautiously ran towards that direction while paying attention to the reaction of the origin of Yang on his chest. He wanted to see if he could find Yuan Lang. However, along the way, the origin of Yang did not react at all. He did not know where Yuan Lang had run off to, but he was helpless. After all, his sensing range was only 2,000 feet. If Yuan Lang went beyond this range, Yang Kai would not be able to find him. After rushing for a stick of incense, just as he was about to reach Xia Ning Chang's hiding place, the origin of Yang on his chest reacted at this moment. Yang Kai was pleasantly surprised. He was surprised because Yuan Lang's current location was very close to Xia Ning Chang. He was happy because he had finally found this blood group disciple. Had he found Xia Ning Chang? Thinking of this, Yang Kai hurriedly approached that direction. At the same time, he held his breath and paid attention to that direction. After a moment, Yang Kai sighed in relief. There was no movement from that direction. Yuan Lang should not have found Xia Ning Chang's hiding place. Otherwise, they would definitely have started fighting. Yang Kai was not worried about Xia Ning Chang's safety. After all, she could still use her heaven-grade defensive artifact. However, her hiding place was very awkward. It was a crack in the mountain that only allowed one person to enter at a time. If Yuan Lang blocked her inside and let out a whistle to inform Long Hui and that expert, things would become very troublesome. Thinking of this, Yang Kai became even more cautious. Xia Ning Chang was also very nervous at this moment. Since Yang Kai left, she had been recovering here, after taking a palm strike, from when Fei Chen, activating a heaven-grade artifact and opening the 9-8 locks array, her consumption was greater than anyone else's. After recovering for such a long time and using all the pills he had with him, he had only recovered 20% of his strength. At best, he was only equivalent to the 7th or 8th level of the initial element realm. Just a moment ago, there was a sudden commotion outside. Xia Ning Chang was so shocked that her heart jumped. She hid in the crevice of the mountain and didn't dare to move. Her pair of bright eyes quietly narrowed as she looked outside, wanting to see who was approaching. She was expecting Yang Kai, but if it was really Yang Kai, there was no reason for him not to come in immediately. That person had been loitering outside for a long time, but had not been able to enter. Naturally, it was not the person she was waiting for. It was the enemy. She just didn't know how strong this person was. The other party had been searching nearby for a full 30 minutes very carefully, but found nothing. Seeing that the footsteps were about to leave in a hurry, Xia Ning Chang couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. However, at this moment, there was a rustling sound from the bushes at the entrance of the mountain crevice. Xia Ning Chang's heart, which had just calmed down, suddenly jumped up again. Immediately after, a small black shadow suddenly rushed out of the bushes and jumped directly in front of Xia Ning Chang. She was so scared that she almost cried out in alarm, but when she looked closely, she couldn't help but not know whether to laugh or cry. This was actually a squirrel that lived in the valley. It was probably frozen by the Yin Qi, so it had found this mountain crevice to take shelter from the wind. Xia Ning Chang cautiously reached out, wanting to grab it. Unexpectedly, the squirrel was very vigilant. When it sensed that there was someone here, it immediately jumped out. In midair, a large hand suddenly appeared and firmly grabbed the squirrel. Then, with a strong squeeze, blood splattered. A burst of sinister laughter rang out as Yuan Lang's sturdy figure blocked the only entrance to the mountain. His face revealed a pleasantly surprised expression as he looked at Xia Ning Chang, who was sitting inside, and said, "So, you were hiding here?" Xia Ning Chang's face suddenly became cold. Her beautiful eyes angrily looked at Yuan Lang. Women generally loved small animals very much, especially small animals that looked cute. Although the squirrel just now exposed her whereabouts, Yuan Lang's cruel methods still angered her. "You made me look for you for a long time." Yuan Lang blocked the mountain crevice and calmly looked at Xia Ning Chang. "What is lost at the swings? What is gained at the swings? I couldn't find Yang Kai, but I found you. It's a great achievement." With this sentence, Xia Ning Chang immediately calmed down. It turned out that junior brother was safe and sound. If you dare come over, I'll let you die without a burial place. Xia Ning Chang coldly threatened. However, her natural disposition was pure and innocent. Even when she lied, her face would turn red. If these words had come from someone else's mouth, it would have been somewhat threatening. However, Yuan Lang could hear the lack of confidence in her words. He couldn't help but laugh and say, "Do you still have the strength to fight? You're lucky that you didn't faint after taking that palm strike from Hall Masterwan. Right now, you're just hanging on by a thread." Although Yuan Lang's strength was sealed, Xia Ning Chang wasn't much better off. If they really fought, Yuan Lang wasn't afraid of her at all. After all, both of them were at the separation and reunion boundary. It was just that one of them was higher than the other. Now that the only exit was blocked by her, Yuan Lang had the upper hand, and victory was in his hands. Be obedient, and I promise I won't let you suffer. If you dare to resist, don't blame me for being ruthless. Yuan Lang fiercely threatened. Xia Ning Chang didn't answer. She secretly gathered her yuan qi and prepared to give him a fierce blow when he got close. However, Yuan Lang obviously knew what she was planning to do. He didn't get close and just blocked the way. This made Xia Ning Chang secretly complain. "I know you have a heaven-grade defensive artifact. In my current state, I'm afraid I can't do anything to you. But what if I send a message to ask others to come over? Do you still have any hope of escaping?" Yuan Lang wasn't in a hurry. He had the mentality of a cat toying with a mouse, using words to destroy Xia Ning Chang's psychological defenses. "What do you want to do?" Xia Ning Chang coldly asked. "What do I want to do? I should be the one asking you that. If you want to live, you have to obediently agree to a few of my conditions. If you don't, I'll call people over right now." Realizing that the time had come, Yuan Lang finally revealed his fox tail. What conditions? Xia Ning Chang was also happy to waste time with this person. Right now, the more time she had, the more her yuan qi would recover. First, you have to seal your yuan qi and obediently wait to be captured. Second, you have to give me that defensive artifact. Third, Yuan Lang revealed a trace of a perverted smile. "Take off your mask and let me see your true appearance. Don't worry, I won't do anything to you. If you really are a beauty, I'll let you go and definitely won't make things difficult for you." Even a child wouldn't believe this. If Xia Ning Chang really sealed her yuan qi, then wouldn't Yuan Lang be able to do whatever he wanted? In this dark and windy night where a man and a woman were alone, how could a man resist the temptation of beauty? Xia Ning Chang was simple, but she wasn't someone who could be easily deceived. She immediately scolded. Wishful thinking. Chapter 109. You're forcing my hand. Yuan Lang's face turned cold. "You're going too far." Xia Ning Chang did not back down. Yuan Lang's expression was cold and stern. He wanted to send a message, but after thinking about it, he restrained himself and chuckled. "Then let's see if this girl's defensive artifact can block my attack." He really couldn't bear to give up such a delicious meal that was already in his mouth. If he could really subdue Xia Ning Chang with his own strength, it would be equivalent to obtaining at least a heaven-grade artifact. With such a treasure, where could he not go in this big world? There was no need to stay in the blood group and risk his life, right? What's more, this girl's origin was mysterious and her value was not low. He estimated that she had more than one artifact, so he wanted to try. If it really didn't work, then it wouldn't be too late to send a message. In any case, with him here, she couldn't escape even if she had wings. Thinking of this, Yuan Lang smirked and walked towards Xia Ning Chang. Xia Ning Chang complained in her heart. Although she had recovered 20% of her yuan qi and could activate her defensive artifact, it consumed too much yuan qi. Once she used it, she would fall into a state of weakness again. She was still counting on using this little bit of yuan qi to find Yang Kai, How could she bear to use it all up? But if she didn't use it, she didn't have the confidence to defeat Yuan Lang. The terrain here was really bad. She couldn't display her strength. She could only block for a while and see if she could find an opportunity to kill him. Xia Ningchong also didn't intend to be lenient. The other party had already bullied her. How could she compromise? The distance between the two was getting closer and closer. Xia Ningchong also slowly stood up, secretly raising her Yuan Qi and vigilantly staring at Yuan Lang, who was coming over. This was a true encounter on a narrow path. In this narrow mountain gap, no matter who it was, there was no way to easily avoid each other's attacks. When they were still 10 meters away, Yuan Lang's smile gradually disappeared. His expression turned serious. Xia Ningchong suddenly made her move. Without any warning, she made the first move, much to Yuan Lang's surprise. Her slender jade-like hands formed an orchid shape, and she flicked her finger forward. An ice-cold wind shot towards Yuan Lang like an arrow. Yuan Lang's expression changed. He didn't expect this woman to still have the strength to fight with him. After all, how long had it been since she was injured? Even if he took a pill, it was impossible for him to recover so quickly, right? How could he know that Xia Ningchong had a special physique? As soon as the pills entered her body, she could directly absorb and refine them. If it wasn't for the fact that she didn't have enough pills with her, how could she only recover 20% of her strength? This finger wind was cold to the bone, like a sharp icicle. It was the result of Xia Ningchong using the yin qi in the valley and her own special characteristics to instantly refine it. The killing power wasn't too strong, but the advantage was that it didn't consume much energy, and it was fast enough. With a whizzing sound, Yuan Lang used his palm to move his saber. Yuan Qi burst forth, and he slashed forward with his palm, shouting, "Flying Cloud Chop!" Flying Cloud Chop wasn't a palm technique, but a saber technique. It was an earth-level low-grade martial art, and its power wasn't weak. However, Yuan Lang didn't have a saber, so he could only use his palm as a substitute. Naturally, the power of the attack was reduced. But even so, Xia Ningchang's attack was cut in half by him, and it didn't have any effect. Feeling that this attack didn't have any killing power, Yuan Lang wanted to laugh at it, but he didn't expect that he would be met with another wave of so-so sounds. It was Xia Ningchong who had sent out another attack. Yuan Lang was annoyed. He formed a fist with one hand and punched out, shouting, "Azure Dragon's Roar." Sure enough, there was a faint sound of a dragon's roar. This move was even more powerful than the previous Flying Cloud Chop. Without giving him time to breathe, the whizzing sound came again. Xia Ningchong actually started to move left and right. Her two small hands moved endlessly, and one wind after another fiercely shot out. Yuan Lang didn't retreat an inch and hurriedly used his martial arts to neutralize it. Thousand Execution Flash, Flying Phoenix Ghost Kill, Heavenly Mandate Thunder, Transforming Iron Palm, Steel Beheading Hand, Spirit Dragon Fist, as expected of a separation and reunion boundary expert. The variety of martial arts he practiced was very varied. He changed his methods to compete with Xia Ningchang's attacks, and for a moment, they were in deep water. On the other hand, Xia Ningchong was the type to deal with all kinds of changes. No matter what kind of martial skill he used, all she had was a cold finger wind. The two of them were separated by 10 meters, but they were evenly matched. Sparks flew from the cliff walls of the mountain crack, all of which were swept out by the aftershocks of the two people's martial arts. After fighting for a long time, Yuan Lang finally realized that something was wrong. His strength was sealed, and he had to work hard to resist the invasion of the cold qi. After continuously using so many martial arts that consumed Yuan Qi, he actually felt a little weak. On the other hand, the woman opposite him was still the same as before. Her face didn't turn red, and her heart didn't beat fast. It was as if the wind she sent out didn't cost money, and didn't consume yuan qi at all. How could he know that Xia Ning Chang's wind was mostly the cold wind gathered from the cold qi in the valley? She only needed to use a little bit of her yuan qi to create a strong killing force. After fighting for a while, Yuan Lang finally understood that in his current state he couldn't eat Xia Ning Chang at all. He immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation and said fiercely, "Stinking woman, if you still don't surrender, I'll call young Master Longhui over. If he comes over, he'll definitely ruthlessly ravage you and make you wish you were dead." Despicable. Xia Ning Chang was angry. Any woman who falls into Long Hui's hands doesn't have a good life. You might as well obediently submit to me. I promise I'll treat you well. Shameless. Xia Ning Chang continued to be angry. "I'll count to 3. If you don't surrender, then don't blame me for not giving you a chance." Yuan Lang's expression turned cold as he made his final ultimatum. Then he slowly shouted, 1. While the two were talking, their hands didn't rest at all. They were still fighting fiercely. 2. Yuan Lang deliberately dragged out the word. Xia Ning Chang's eyes suddenly curved into crescents. Although her face was covered by a veil, Yuan Lang was sure that this woman was smiling just now. She looks so good when she smiles. Yuan Lang thought to himself. For a moment he couldn't bear to say 3 out loud. "Have you thought it through?" Yuan Lang thought that she had changed her mind. Xia Ning Chang's eyes were still curved like crescents. She shouted, "Do you think you're the only one who knows how to call people?" "What?" Yuan Lang didn't understand. "I know how to call people too." Xia Ning Chang looked behind him and stamped her feet with a sobbing tone. "Junior brother, you're finally here." Yuan Lang didn't even turn his head. He sneered. "You want to use this kind of trick to trick me? Miss, do you think I'm an idiot?" "You really are an idiot." Suddenly, a cold voice came from behind. Yuan Lang's expression changed greatly. He hurriedly tried to turn around, but Xia Ning Chang didn't give him the chance. She attacked him fiercely, causing him to be flustered. In addition, the mountain was narrow, so he couldn't turn around. Half of his body was stuck, unable to advance or retreat. It was very awkward. With a puff, Yuan Lang felt a pain in his back. He vaguely felt a sharp weapon pierce through his body. He looked down and saw the tip of a sword piercing through his heart. Chapter 110. The sword pierced through his chest. This was a fatal wound. Yuan Lang could feel his heart suddenly contracting. All the blood in his body burst out, and his life was quickly fading away. He turned his head with difficulty and finally saw Yang Kai behind him. "Bastard." Yuan Lang's face showed a strange expression. He looked at Yang Kai with unwillingness and anger. Yang Kai was silent. He pulled the sword out of Yuan Lang's chest, bringing out a burst of warm blood, and then suddenly stabbed it in again. After taking 2 blows, Yuan Lang finally couldn't take it anymore. His body softened, and he fell down. His consciousness gradually blurred. Before he died, Yuan Lang's mouth slowly showed a trace of a bitter smile. His luck was really bad. God made fools of people. He originally thought that he had the upper hand by blocking this woman in the mountain crack, but he didn't expect that he would be blocked by someone else. If it weren't for this special terrain, how could he be killed without being able to fight back? Even if he couldn't beat them in a 1 versus 2 situation, he should have had a chance to escape, right? But now, everything was in vain. The hunter, who knew that there would be a day when he would become the prey. "Are you okay?" Yang Kai looked up at Xia Ning Chang. In fact, when Yuan Lang discovered this little senior sister, Yang Kai was already nearby. However, he didn't immediately make a move. Instead, he waited until Yuan Lang entered the mountain crack and fought with Xia Ning Chang before he made a sneak attack. This method was a bit despicable. After all, Xia Ning Chang didn't know the situation and was frightened for a while. However, it was the most time-saving and effortless way to kill the enemy. I'm fine, you. Xia Ningchong was stunned before she finished speaking. She saw the half-foot-long wound on Yang Kai's abdomen and the bloody hole on his shoulder. At this moment, the blood-soaked Kai Yang's face was calm and filled with concern. His expression was firm and resolute, giving off a kind of steadiness and reliability that only men could possess. He was completely different from his usual weak and fragile self. His upper body blocked the entrance of the mountain. His thin body was as immovable as a mountain, blocking all the wind, rain, and tribulation, making this narrow mountain crack as warm as a tranquil harbor. Slowly walking forward, Xia Ningchong stretched out her trembling hand towards the wound. However, she didn't dare to touch it for fear of hurting Yang Kai. Her eyes instantly turned red. It had only been 4 hours. What kind of arduous battle had he gone through outside for him to become like this? How much blood did he have to bleed to make his blood chi soar to the sky? In this mountain valley that was practically cut off from the rest of the world, facing more than 10 enemies who were eyeing them covetously, Xia Ningchong felt as if she and Yang Kai were mutually dependent. Now that she saw his miserable state, how could she not feel distressed? Every girl had the dream of a hero saving the damsel in distress. Although the person who saved her this time wasn't a great hero, nor was he a great hero, but was just an ordinary junior brother in the initial element realm. Compared to her own strength, he was worlds apart. But the girl's heart couldn't help but ripple. It's just a small wound. Yang Kai said indifferently, "Oh, right, I found the 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew." Oh, Xia Ningchong rubbed her eyes. She wasn't as happy as she expected. "How do we collect that thing? You should tell me now, right?" Yang Kai asked. "Otherwise, if we find it later, it might run away again. We don't want that." Xia Ningchong pulled on Yang Kai's hand and gestured for him to sit down. "Why not?" Yang Kai frowned. Didn't they come all the way here just for the 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew? Xia Ningchong ignored him and said softly, "Sit down first, and we'll talk." Yang Kai looked at her suspiciously, and then slowly sat down. Xia Ningchong lowered her head, bit her lips, and half knelt in front of Yang Kai. She tore a long piece of cloth from her dress, and then took out a bottle and poured some ointment on the cloth. She reached over to Yang Kai's body and wrapped the wound on his abdomen. Yang Kai let her do whatever she wanted. "We'll wait here until dawn," Xia Ningchong said softly as she wrapped Yang Kai's wound. "After dawn, the 9 innate locks formation will break, and we'll leave this place. But we came here. Don't." Xia Ningchong interrupted Yang Kai with an unquestionable firmness. "For that thing, it's not worth it." Yang Kai looked at her thoughtfully and frowned. "I know what you're worried about, but I've already killed 9 of them. They only have 2 people left." "What?" Xia Ningchong looked up, her beautiful eyes full of disbelief. "They still have 2 people. We also have 2 people. Why should we be afraid of them?" Yang Kai's eyes flashed with madness. "Since they're not kind, we don't need to be polite to them. Also, the 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew. We can't let go of this thing. We can't give up halfway." "You're lying to me, right?" Xia Ningchong looked at Yang Kai innocently. "Are you so gullible?" Yang Kai chuckled. He accidentally pulled on his wound and sucked in a cold breath. "Are they really only left with 2 people?" "Yes, there's only Long Hui, and the person who injured you left." Yang Kai nodded. Xia Ningchong was stunned. She had thought that Yang Kai had returned in such a distressed state because he was being chased by so many people outside. Being able to escape with his life was already a stroke of luck, but she had never expected that he would actually tell her that in just 2 hours he had killed 9 enemies. There were several separation and reunion boundary cultivators among those people. How did he do it? "If they only have 2 people left, then we really don't need to be afraid of them." Xia Ningchong frowned. "The only thing I'm worried about now is that after dawn, that Yuan Qi boundary cultivator will recover his strength. If he continues to chase after us, I'm afraid, we won't be able to run far. Yang Kai raised his eyebrows. After the formation is broken, his strength can also recover? Yes. Then we don't have a choice. Yang Kai's expression turned cold. If they didn't kill that Yuan Qi boundary cultivator before dawn, then the two of them would definitely be captured alive. But I've only recovered 20% of my strength. If we really meet that Yuan Qi boundary cultivator, I'm afraid it'll be a bit troublesome. Xia Ningchang sighed. I've collected a lot of pills here. See if there's anything you can use. Yang Kai took out the loot from the dead person and then ran to Yuan Lang's body to search. He immediately took out several bottles of pills. Yuan Lang seemed to be much wealthier than the others. He carried more pills and banknotes with him than the others. With these qi recovery pills, I should be able to recover 40% of my strength. That should be enough. Xia Ning Chang's face showed a bit of excitement. You recover first. I'll keep an eye on you. Yang Kai also wanted to take advantage of this time to recover. Although the Yuan Qi in his body was endless, his physical strength and spirit still needed to be nurtured. Chapter 111. There was less than an hour left before dawn. Yang Kai and Xia Ning Chang walked out of the hidden crevice and followed the direction of the flow of Yin Qi in the valley. Now, the direction of the flow of Yin Qi in the valley was very easy to identify because the 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew was absorbing the Ling Qi in the valley at a very fast speed, causing the entire valley's Yin Qi to fiercely converge towards a certain place. This kind of strange phenomenon could be detected by anyone who was in the valley. Yang Kai estimated that the two people from the bloody battle gang would certainly go to investigate, and when the time came, they would naturally meet. After killing several qi transforming stage and separation and reunion stage experts, Yang Kai's fighting spirit still had not subsided because there was still a Yuan Qi stage expert in the valley. As long as there was pressure, Yang Kai's unyielding will would always play its role, and his mind and body would always be tense. He just didn't know how much strength this Yuan Qi stage expert had left. After the time it took to burn a stick of incense, the two gradually approached the source of the Yin Qi. There was a bright light suspended in the air, and when the Yin Qi entered it, it disappeared as if it was swallowed. This was the 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew that Yang Kai had seen before. However, compared to before, it was very different now. The 9 Yin dew crystals from before were just a ball of light, without any special shape. Now, it was like a flower bud that was about to bloom, and the tender petals were clearly visible. The two people hid their figures and were about 50 feet away from the 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew. Xia Ning Chang whispered, "The 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew is inside the flower bud, and when the flower bud blooms, it will appear. At that time, it can be collected. Originally, I arranged the 9 Yin 8 locks formation to deal with it, but those people forced me to activate it ahead of time. As long as those people don't die, the 8 Yin Qi chains will not return. This time, we can only rely on Junior Brothers means your true Yang Yuan Qi is its nemesis. If I don't have the formation, I can't help you. Doesn't it know how to escape?" Yang Kai frowned. "Yes, so there is not much hope." Xia Ning Chang was about to retreat. "Then, if we kill all those people, you can use the formation again, right?" Yang Kai narrowed his eyes. "Although you say that, what if they don't come here?" "They're already here." Yang Kai's eyes flashed a cold light as he suddenly turned his head to the side. Wen Fei Chen's hearty laughter rang out. "Ha, smart brat." Yang Kai's expression was calm as he stood shoulder to shoulder with Xia Ning Chang. When Fei Chen calmly arrived 20 meters away from the two and said with a smile, "You are actually still alive. It seems that those pieces of trash won't be able to accomplish anything great." When Fei Chen had been trying his best to dissolve the Yin Qi chains that had invaded his body, but no matter what he did, he was unable to do so. None of his subordinates had returned to report the situation. He and Long Hui had been waiting anxiously when they suddenly felt a change in the Yin-Chi in the mountain valley, so they followed the traces and came here. As soon as they arrived, they saw Yang Kai and Xianing Chang. Wen Fei Chun and Long Hui were both overjoyed at the unexpected good news. They didn't bother to hide their figures and walked over openly. Since things had escalated to this point, Wen Fei Chun naturally would not be kind to Yang Kai. He immediately let out a long whistle, wanting to call back his subordinates. But after he shouted, he discovered that the youth opposite him was looking at him with ridicule, without the slightest trace of fear. Wen Fei Chun did not understand why the other party was so fearless. Yang Kai took a step forward and said with a cold expression, "Even if you shout until you lose your voice, no one will come to help you." Wen Fei Chen's expression changed. "What happened to them?" "They're all dead. Dead people naturally have no way to help you." Yang Kai laughed. Wen Fei Chen's expression suddenly became gloomy as he looked at Xianing Chang in surprise. In his opinion, only Xianing Chang could kill those separation and reunion boundary masters. A trivial Yang Kai did not have that kind of ability. What a miscalculation. He did not expect that this woman would still have the strength to fight. When he hit her a few hours ago, he clearly felt that she did not have the strength to resist. How could she recover so quickly? "Even if they are all dead, don't think that you can escape from my hands." Wen Fei Chun coldly snorted, clearly not caring about the deaths of those people. Yang Kai took a step forward, the true Yang Yuan Qi in his body surging, his blood boiling, and his fighting spirit endless. Just as he was about to attack Wen Fei Chun, a beautiful figure flew out from behind him, heading straight for Wen Fei Chun. Xianing Chang was the first to make a move. Moreover, it was a move that enveloped Wen Fei Chun. She clearly wanted to take care of the injured Yang Kai, so she wanted to fight 1 against 2. Her figure swayed, and 10 cold chi flew out, 7 attacking Wen Fei Chun and 3 attacking Long Hui. Her speed was as fast as lightning, and her momentum was astonishing. Wen Fei Chun laughed loudly. "This little girl's killing intent is not light. This is not good." As he spoke, his palms met Xia Ning Chang's attack, and he easily neutralized it. He said, "Young Master Long, I'll leave that brat to you. I'll deal with this little girl." "Okay." Long Hui nodded and did not forget to remind him, "Don't hurt her face." "I know." Wen Fei Chun smiled meaningfully and immediately joined forces with Xianing Chang. Although Xianing Chang had recovered 40% of his strength, he was still injured and could only display the strength of the Qi transformation stage level 6 or 7. Wen Fei Chun was even worse and could only display the strength of the Qi transformation stage level 2 or 3. But after all, the two of them had different realms. Xianing Chang was at the peak of the separation and reunion stage and had Yuan Qi in his body. Wen Fei Chun was at the Yuan Qi stage and had Yuan Qi in his body. There was a fundamental difference between Yuan Qi and Yuan Qi. The former could display more destructive power than the latter. In addition, Wen Fei Chen's battle experience was much richer than Xianing Chang's. In this exchange, Xianing Chang felt that it was a little strenuous to deal with him. Although she wouldn't lose quickly, it was impossible for her to defeat Wen Fei Chun with her own strength. At most, it would be a draw. Both of them were experts, so the battle was also extremely intense. Their figures had already flashed 1,000 feet away in a flash. Yang Kai did not pay too much attention to Xianing Chang's battle because he also had his own opponent. Glancing at Long Hui, who was standing 100 feet away from him, Yang Kai suddenly chuckled. "Young Master Long, right?" Long Hui coldly said, "You want to beg for mercy? It's too late. I have a few questions to ask you." "Ooh." Long Hui looked at Yang Kai with a playful expression and said casually, "If this is your last wish before you die, I can fulfill it." Chapter 112. You can take it that way. Yang Kai couldn't deny it and smiled. Looking at him, he said, "You really want to kill me because of who may err?" Long Huey's expression was frivolous as he disdainfully said, "Otherwise, why do you think this young master has nothing better to do than follow you all the way here?" Yang Kai frowned, "But I don't have a deep friendship with who may err. We've only met a few times." "Humph, maybe you don't have any feelings for her, but that slut doesn't have feelings for you." Long Huey's face showed a touch of anger. "For you, she even dared to disobey my grandfather. She has never done such a thing, nor has she ever done such a thing for a man. Who do you think you are, daring to have ideas about my woman?" "Your grandfather?" Yang Kai's eyes flashed a cold light as he remembered Long Zaition's unreasonable attack. At that time, if it wasn't for the unyielding golden skeleton playing a role and breaking free from Long Zaition's shackles, Yang Kai feared he would have already died. "There's one more question." Yang Kai's face was cold. "How did you know I left High Heaven Pavilion? Since they could chase him all the way here, they must have left not long after he left High Heaven Pavilion. Otherwise, they would have lost track of him. In other words, when he left High Heaven Pavilion, he was already being watched." Long Hui chuckled. "Naturally, someone tipped me off." "Sure enough. As for who tipped me off, this young master doesn't know. But I think you should know who you've offended." Long Hui looked at Kai Yang with disdain, as if he was looking at a dead man. He didn't intend to hide anything from Kai Yang and told him everything he knew and didn't know. "As for Nu Lang, I didn't expect him to be here. I only found his tracks at the foot of the mountain." Yang Kai nodded slightly. Long Hui didn't need to lie to him. Since he said so, then it must be true. Nu Lang probably just chased after him by chance. There's no need to investigate further. In any case, he's already dead. This young master has already fulfilled your wish. Now, die." Long Hui laughed sinisterly. His body flickered, and he quickly closed the distance between him and Yang Kai. His eyes were filled with excitement. His chi transforming stage, first level Yuan Chi, began to circulate, and his fists fiercely punched out. With every swing of his fist, a feather-like attack shot out from the tip of his fist. Flying Feather Burst, a mid-grade earth-grade martial skill. As Long Zaition's grandson, Long Huey's status was not low, so the martial skills he cultivated were naturally not ordinary. It could be said that although he was also at the first level of the chi transforming realm, his true strength was much higher than Nu Lang's. Long Hui wasn't just a lustful, hedonistic young master. To the current Yang Kai, he was also a difficult enemy to deal with. As the feathers flew towards him, Kai Yang hastily dodged, causing Long Huey's attack to hit nothing but air. A trace of surprise flashed across Long Huey's eyes. In his opinion, Yang Kai, who was at the fourth level of the initial element realm, shouldn't be able to dodge his killing move. In the next moment, a fierce and brutal Yuan Chi fluctuation suddenly burst out from Yang Kai's body. Feeling the intensity of this Yuan Chi fluctuation, Long Huey's face changed. How was this the fourth level of the initial element realm? It was obvious that he had already reached the peak of the initial element realm. Based on the intensity of the fluctuation, he wasn't inferior to Long Huey's. Long Hui was surprised for only a moment. He had already rushed to Yang Kai's side. Yuan Chi surged on his fist as he ruthlessly punched towards Yang Kai from above. Yang Kai dodged again. This punch directly hit the ground, accompanied by a loud bang and a cloud of dust. Suddenly, a big hole appeared on the ground. Not waiting for Long Hui to get up, Yang Kai's dodging body suddenly came back. Raising his knee high, he fiercely aimed at Long Huey's chin. Long Huey's reaction wasn't slow. One of his hands formed a palm, blocking his chin and pressing it down. The knee hit the palm. Both of their Yuan Chi burst out. Yang Kai's body staggered. Long Hui was also sent flying backwards. Borrowing this force, he dissolved Yang Kai's attack. Both of them hurriedly stood still after exchanging one move. Sizing up Yang Kai, Long Hui narrowed his eyes. So you've been hiding your strength all this time. But even so, you're still not my opponent. Before he finished speaking, Long Hui's figure suddenly blurred. A golden light flashed under his feet. In a flash, he appeared behind Yang Kai. Golden rainbow steps. It was another mid-grade Earth-level martial art. Borrowing the speed of this miraculous footwork, Long Hui finally arrived at Yang Kai's blind spot. The yuan qi on his finger surged, and he stabbed towards the back of Yang Kai's head. Clearly, he wanted to kill Yang Kai in one strike. In this life-and-death situation, Kai Yang felt a gust of wind behind his head. Hurriedly, he tilted his head to the side. This finger grazed past Kai Yang's cheek. The sharp-whirled qi left a bloody scar on his face. Yang Kai turned around. A drop of yang liquid had already appeared on his fingertip. In the next moment, it turned into a blood-red blade, as thin as a cicada's wing. He fiercely swung it at Long Hui, who was close at hand. This was a strong opponent. Yang Kai didn't dare to hide his strength anymore. Any carelessness could cost him his life. The blade directly cut through Long Hui's body, splitting him in two. But Yang Kai didn't have the slightest bit of happiness. This was because he could feel that he hadn't hit anything. What he had just cut was only Long Hui's afterimage. His opponent's footwork was quite profound. Good reaction. Long Hui's voice came from more than 10 feet away. He calmly looked at Yang Kai. Yang Kai fiercely shook his hand, and the blood-red blade flew out with a schwa sound. Long Hui didn't dare to stop. He used the golden rainbow steps again, to dodge. He looked at Yang Kai like a cat playing with a mouse. His face carried a trace of contempt and disdain. Without making a sound, Yang Kai's eyes were filled with unyielding determination and dense fighting spirit. He rushed in front of Long Hui and punched out. Nothing happened. Long Hui's figure had already appeared on the other side. Humph, you want to defeat me with your snail's speed? You overestimate yourself. Long Hui's mouth didn't rest for a moment. He was using all his ability to ridicule. He felt that by relying on the golden rainbow steps, he was already in an invincible position. If his opponent couldn't hit him, how could he win? His ferocious attacks would only waste his yuan qi. When his yuan qi was almost exhausted, it would be the time for him to kill him. So Long Hui decided to continue fighting with Yang Kai. When the time came, he would use the smallest price to win. Slow, too slow. If you can't kill me, then this young master will kindly accept your female companion. What does she look like? I'm really looking forward to seeing her scream when she's being ravaged. Ha ha ha. This young master loves to hear a woman's unwilling scream the most. Just thinking about that scene, does it make your heart ache? Chapter 113. It has to be said that even though Long Hui was a hedonistic young master, he knew how to infuriate the enemy and create an opportunity for himself to win. Every time he dodged Yang Kai's attack, he would mock him. If it was someone else, they would have been provoked to the point of insanity. Yang Kai looked the same. His eyes were scarlet red, and his yuan qi was restless. It was obvious that he was very agitated. However, if one looked closely, they would discover that Yang Kai's eyes were very firm. Even if he was being ridiculed, his determination to win did not change one bit. After fighting for an incense stick's worth of time, Yang Kai did not know how many attacks he had made, but he did not even touch the corner of Long Hui's clothes. Long Hui's mouth was dry from all the ridicule, but he was also very surprised. Logically speaking, after fighting for so long, this guy should have lost some of his yuan qi. But why did his attacks not weaken at all? The amount of yuan qi in his body was not enough to support such a fierce attack. Long Hui was not wrong. A normal initial element cultivator would not be able to last this long without showing signs of weakening. However, Yang Kai was obviously not a normal initial element cultivator. Fighting a protracted battle with him was undoubtedly the wrong idea for Long Hui. While he was pondering, Kai Yang sent out another attack. Hurriedly, Long Hui dodged, but just as he was about to stabilize himself, he suddenly heard a piercing sound. A scorching hot attack had brushed past his waist and flew out. He lowered his head and saw that his clothes had been cut open. That attack just now had almost hurt him. What a pity! Yang Kai took a deep breath. The light in his eyes became more and more excited, but mixed with a trace of calmness. This was a rather contradictory look, but it was perfectly combined. How is this possible? Long Hui's expression changed. That attack just now was obviously an attack that the enemy had predicted where he would land and launched in advance. If it was not for his good luck, he would have been injured. But how did he predict where he would land? Could it be that in just an incense stick's worth of time, this Yang Kai had already seen through his golden rainbow steps? Impossible! He was only at the initial element state, so how could he have such a good eye? Next time, even if you don't die, you'll be heavily injured. Yang Kai looked at Long Hui coldly. Bullshit. Long Hui raged. You want to scare this young master? You're still too inexperienced. Yang Kai didn't say anything and just kept attacking. Long Hui was enraged. This time, he didn't use the golden rainbow steps to dodge. Instead, he met Yang Kai's attack with a punch. With a loud bang, Yang Kai's body remained motionless, as steady as a mountain. Long Hui, on the other hand, felt a surge of yuan qi invade his fist and staggered backwards. Long Hui no longer dared to clash head-on with Yang Kai. He hurriedly used the golden rainbow steps in an attempt to increase the distance between him and Yang Kai. Whoosh! A crimson water droplet suddenly flew out. The moment Long Hui stopped, it directly hit his right chest. Long Hui's face turned pale with fright as he clutched his right chest and gasped for breath. Blood immediately flowed out from the corner of his mouth as he cried out involuntarily, "Impossible! Impossible! This is impossible!" His golden rainbow steps had actually been seen through. Yang Kai's attack had hit his landing spot in advance, making it impossible for him to dodge. Moreover, this attack was so overbearing that it made people's hearts palpitate. Not only did it penetrate his common-grade, high-grade defensive artifact, but it also entered his body. If not for his yuan qi blocking it, this attack would definitely have pierced through his body. Nothing is impossible. Yang Kai's expression was grave and stern as he quickly stepped forward. Long Hui didn't dare to stay any longer. He used his footwork and was about to run towards Wen Fei Chen while shouting, "Hall Master Wen, save me!" The current Long Hui was panicking like a stray dog. His previous arrogance and calmness were completely gone. Just as he was about to land, a burst of pain came from his back. Long Hui directly fell flat on his face. Not waiting for him to get up, a big foot stepped on his neck. The strength of the foot was like a mountain pressing down on him. Long Hui kept struggling on the ground, but he couldn't turn around. "I am the grandson of Blood Group's Deputy Chief Long Zaitian. If you let me go, I will give you money and women. Whatever you want, I will give you. If you kill me, it won't do you any good. It will only make you an enemy of my Long family." Long Hui couldn't resist. His mouth repeatedly begged for mercy. His back was facing Yang Kai, but his eyes were filled with incomparable resentment. "Young Master Long." Yang Kai took a deep breath. "Your screams are not pleasant to hear." "Yes, yes, yes. Brother Yang is right. If you don't like it, I won't scream." Under the eaves, Long Hui didn't dare to not lower his head. "Then keep your mouth shut forever." Finished speaking, Yang Kai stepped on Long Hui's head. His entire face was on the ground. Crouching down, he punched Long Hui's neck. With a cracking sound, Long Hui's neck was broken. His eyes were wide open, filled with fear and remorse. With one hand holding Long Hui's corpse, Yang Kai stood up and quickly approached the other side of the battlefield. A moment later, when Fei Chun and Xia Ning Chang's figures entered Yang Kai's sight. At this moment, the two were evenly matched. Neither was inferior to the other. One's strength was sealed, the other was injured. Yuan Qi hadn't recovered yet, so there was no way for them to display their full strength. The methods they could use were also reduced. But even so, this level of battle was much more intense than Yang Kai's experience. Their figures moved and flashed as if they were invisible. Yuan Qi burst forth. The battle was very tense. Yang Kai watched from the side for a moment. He knew that if he faced Wen Fei Chen one-on-one, he wouldn't have much of a chance of winning. But now, with Xia Ning Chang, it was a 2-versus-1 battle, so it was hard to say. After watching for a while, Yang Kai already had a plan. He quickly approached Wen Fei Chen while holding Long Hui's corpse and shouting, "Hall Master Wen, look at who this is!" Wen Fei Chen had already noticed Yang Kai's figure, but didn't dare to divert his attention to investigate. Naturally, he didn't know the details. Now that he heard this, he hurriedly turned his head to look and was shocked. Young Master Long. At this moment, there was a big hole in Long Hui's chest. Blood flowed out. His neck was soft, as if his bones were crushed. His head hung in front of his chest, lifeless. Long Hui was dead. When Fei Chen couldn't believe his eyes. This debauchee young master was at least a qi-transforming first-level cultivator. Moreover, he practiced many martial skills that made him drool. His fighting strength couldn't be underestimated. It was because when Fei Chen believed in his strength that he let him fight one-on-one with Yang Kai. But now he was dead? Bad, bad. When Fei Chen secretly complained in his heart, it didn't matter if the other members of the blood group died. But Long Hui couldn't die. If he died, wouldn't Long Zai-Tian be very angry? If this immortal ascension boundary expert blamed him, he wouldn't be able to bear it. Chapter 114. In a battle between experts, victory or defeat could be decided in a single thought. Long Hui's death had obviously disturbed Wen Fei Chen's state of mind. His hasty move had actually revealed many flaws. How could Xia Ning Chang miss this rare opportunity? Her beautiful eyes were cold as she crossed her palms and attacked with a killing move. Sensing that something was wrong, Wen Fei Chen tried his best to resist, but in the end, he couldn't completely block it. The burst of qi exploded on his chest, immediately injuring him. Not waiting for him to have any more time to deal with Xia Ning Chang, Kai Yang had already lifted Long Hui's corpse in front of him. Charging into the battle between the two, a layer of flames ignited on his fist. Stealthily, he punched Long Hui's armpit. Xia Ning Chang timely created pressure on Wen Fei Chen, being attacked from both sides. Wen Fei Chen was actually flustered for a moment, and his expression became awkward. With his current strength, he couldn't do anything to Xia Ning Chang, but if he attacked fiercely, he could seriously injure Yang Kai. However, Yang Kai shamelessly put Long Hui's corpse in front of him as a shield. Even if Wen Fei Chen had thousands of methods, he couldn't use them. If he wanted to hurt Yang Kai, he had to destroy Long Hui's corpse first. He had some misgivings. Shameless brat. Wen Fei Chen was furious. While struggling to resist the attacks of the two, he cursed, "The dead should be respected. You dare to treat young Master Long's corpse like this? Aren't you afraid of being punished by the heavens?" Yang Kai coldly snorted, "The ones who should be punished by the heavens are you. If you didn't force me, how could things have gotten to this point?" When Fei Chen was speechless. Speaking of which, these two people had only come to this mountain valley to search for natural treasures, and they hadn't offended anyone or offended anyone. Their group had chased after them from over 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers away with the intention of killing them, and they'd even used numbers to bully the weak. How could they have the qualifications to criticize them now? Amidst the commotion, Yang Kai finally found an opportunity to land a punch. While Wen Fei Chen was struggling to block Xia Ning Chang's attack, he hit him in the waist. In the blink of an eye, a total of 10 drops of yang liquid shot out like sharp blades. Wen Fei Chen let out a muffled groan and hurriedly stepped back. He looked in the direction of Yang Kai in horror and shock. He discovered that this young man's attack this time was actually several times more ferocious than that woman's. The hot yang qi poured into Wen Fei Chen's body, and a bloody hole appeared on his abdomen. Although he was not seriously injured, the injury was not light. Yang Kai's expression was dignified. He discovered that he had still underestimated this Yuan Qi realm expert. The power of 10 drops of yang liquid had actually failed to penetrate his body. Yuan Qi realm experts' Yuan Qi defensive power was indeed stronger than Yuan Qi. Junior brother, be careful, Xia Ning Chang suddenly shouted. At the same time, Yang Kai discovered that Wen Fei Chen's eyes were flashing with a crazy murderous intent as he pounced towards him. He was finally completely enraged and wanted to attack him regardless of the consequences. The corners of Kai Yang's mouth slowly curled into a cold smile. He knew that once he used the yang liquid, he would definitely become Wen Fei Chen's first target. This was because his realm was lower than Xianing Chang's, but the killing power he displayed was stronger than his. If he was Wen Fei Chen, he would also make the same choice. Everything was within his expectations. Facing Wen Fei Chen's attack, Yang Kai didn't retreat. Instead, he quickly approached him. "Don't," Xia Ning Chang anxiously shouted, but the two were approaching each other at an extremely fast speed. How could she stop them? "Stinking brat. You're courting death." Wen Fei Chen's tone was cold. He didn't hide his intentions at all. He raised his palm and directly blasted it towards Yang Kai. Taking a deep breath, Yang Kai's muscles suddenly tightened. His true Yang Yuan Qi was pushed to the limit this time. The bones in his body creaked, his hair flew in anger, and his skin turned blood red. It was as if he had gone mad. Boom. Wen Fei Chen's palm hit Long Hui's corpse, like a watermelon being smashed open. Long Hui instantly turned into a pile of minced meat and directly exploded. Yang Kai, who was hiding behind him, was completely exposed. Wen Fei Chen once again struck out with his palm. This time, the target was Yang Kai, who had no protection. At this moment, a meaningful smile appeared on the faces of the two men. Under Xia Ning Chang's horrified gaze, this palm blasted Yang Kai's chest without any fancy moves. It was very obvious that Yang Kai's chest suddenly caved in, accompanied by a few crisp sounds of bones breaking. A mouthful of blood involuntarily spurted out. It turned into a blood mist and intentionally or unintentionally sprayed towards Wen Fei Chen, who was close by. How could Wen Fei Chen allow dirty blood to spray on his face? His figure flashed as he hurriedly tried to dodge. But before he could retract his palm from Yang Kai's chest, he shockingly discovered that the corner of Yang Kai's mouth once again appeared a miserable yet proud smile. With a bang, Yang Kai's hands tightly grasped Wen Fei Chen's wrist. Panting heavily, he stared at him with scarlet eyes. "You're dead." Wen Fei Chen's complexion greatly changed. He didn't expect this kid's vitality to be so tenacious. In other words, the Yuan Qi in his body had such a strong protective effect. Although his palm had seriously injured him, it didn't take his life, as expected. But even so, an ordinary person shouldn't be able to resist after being hit by this palm. Why did he still have so much strength? Why did he not let go of him? How strong did his willpower have to be to do this? "Let go of me." Wen Fei Chen raised his other palm and was about to hit Yang Kai. But how could Xia Ning Chang given the chance to attack? In her anger, her beautiful hair fluttered, and the yin energy within a radius of several hundred feet was mobilized. Suddenly, a crystal-clear icicle appeared in front of Xia Ning Chang, whistling through the air towards Wen Fei Chen. Before Wen Fei Chen's palm could land, it was directly penetrated by the sharp icicle, accompanied by a scream, blood splattered everywhere. Roar! Yang Kai suddenly let out an extremely excited and loud roar. The yuan qi that was originally somewhat restless and violent surged even more fiercely. The yuan qi fluctuations that had been stable at the peak of the initial element realm were suddenly broken through by the determination to win and the frenzied desire to fight. At this moment, it actually had a breakthrough. The qi transformation realm. This wasn't the true qi transformation realm. It was only the fluctuations of the qi transformation realm emitted by the yuan qi. But at this moment, Yang Kai, in terms of combat power, was not inferior to anyone present. Sensing Yang Kai's sudden change, when Fei Chen felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, he used all his strength to try and pull back his hand, but he was unable to do so. His other hand was penetrated by Xia Ningchang's attack, and the heart-wrenching pain made his mood even more uneasy. With a kacheft sound, Kai Yang had used all his strength to break one of Wen Fei Chen's fingers. 10 fingers are connected to the heart. How could this kind of pain be endured? In any case, Wen Fei Chen couldn't hold it in, and immediately let out a miserable howl. Another kacha sound rang out, and when Fei Chen's blood-curdling screams rang out, Yang Kai laughed sinisterly and broke Wen Fei Chen's 5 fingers one by one. Then he suddenly pulled him down, and with a knee strike, broke his arm. Xia Ningchang didn't stay idle. He was worried about Yang Kai's injuries and ferociously attacked Wen Fei Chen from time to time. Chapter 115. From the moment when Fei Chen hit Yang Kai with his palm, he was doomed to lose. Yang Kai clearly knew that if he wanted to kill such a master, he would have to restrict his freedom. Otherwise, with his and Xia Ningchang's current strength, there was not much hope. Long Hui had such exquisite footwork. So how could Wen Fei Chen, a master of yuan qi, not have it? Once he noticed something was wrong and escaped, he and Xia Ningchang would be finished when the sun came up. But how difficult would it be to restrict such a master? Even if more than half of his strength was sealed, it was not something he could easily do. Therefore, Yang Kai could only take the risk. He used his own body to take a hit from him and seized the fleeting opportunity to restrain him. This was a very big game of chess. Yang Kai had included himself, so how could Wen Fei Chen not fall into his trap? With both his hands destroyed, Wen Fei Chen was like a hedgehog, without its spikes. He had a lot of strength, but he could not use it at all. Accompanied by rhythmic screams and the sound of bones breaking, Wen Fei Chen was almost experiencing the coldest torture in the world in Yang Kai's hands. In just a few seconds, Wen Fei Chen's screams gradually weakened and could not be heard. His breathing was also not coming out. His whole body was like a pool of mud, limp on the ground. Xia Ningchang watched from the side with fear, as if it was the first time he had seen his junior brother. After observing him for more than 2 years, Xia Ningchang had never seen him so crazy, bloodthirsty, and violent. 3 black yin qi chains suddenly flew out of Wen Fei Chen's body. At the same time, the other 5 chains scattered in the valley also flew out and disappeared into the void. Junior brother, he's already dead. Xia Ningchang gently pulled Yang Kai. When the yin qi chains flew out, it meant that Wen Fei Chen's life was gone. Is he dead? Yang Kai gasped for breath, then slowly straightened his back. Junior brother, are you okay? Xia Ningchang's voice sounded like she was about to cry. She found that her junior brother's current state was a bit strange. His whole body was full of evil qi, as if he was about to become the demon race. Yang Kai knew what she was worried about. He grinned miserably. Don't worry, this is one of my martial arts techniques, but it looks a bit scary. Xia Ningchang's eyes were red as she looked at him. She found that although his eyes were terrifying, there was a calmness within them. She couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Now that everyone is dead, let's go find that 9 crystal. Kai Yang still hadn't forgotten about this matter. Can you still support it? You're so heavily injured. I'm okay, but I'm afraid I won't be able to hold on for much longer. Yang Kai grabbed Xia Ning Chang's hand and hurriedly rushed to the source of the yin qi. Night was about to fall, and there was not much yin qi left in the valley. It was probably absorbed by the 9th yin yuan condensing dew. When they arrived, the treasure was still there. It was not scared away by the 2 battles that happened a few hundred feet away. At this moment, the flower bud was about to fully bloom. There seemed to be a drop of sparkling liquid in the bud, emitting a faint light. How do I do it? Yang Kai asked. Xia Ning Chang said softly. Use your Yang Yuan Qi to bind it, then put it in your mouth. I'll do the rest. Remember, don't touch it with any other part of your body. Put it in my mouth. Yang Kai listened in a daze. Just as he was about to ask for more details, Xia Ning Chang's face lit up. It's coming out. As he spoke, the huge flower bud slowly bloomed. It was the darkest time before dawn, but as the flower bud bloomed, the entire valley suddenly became as bright as day. A drop of sparkling, translucent, dew-like liquid slowly rose from the flower bud and spun around. The petals supporting it turned into dense yin qi at this moment and merged with the liquid. Like a gem, it was beautiful, but it emitted a cold yin energy that would make anyone's heart palpitate. The 9th yin yuan condensing dew, Xia Ning Chang's hands quickly danced, and the 9 yin 8 locks formation once again played its role. The moment the 9th yin yuan condensing dew appeared, the sound of chains rattling could be heard in the air. Immediately, 8 yin qi chains appeared out of thin air, driven by an invisible force. Under Xia Ning Chang's light shout, they fell around the 9th yin yuan condensing dew, sealing off the small space and completely imprisoning it. The 9th yin yuan condensing dew tried to escape, but it couldn't escape the 5-feet radius. Junior brother, it's up to you now. Xia Ning Chang looked at Yang Kai nervously. Although after this ordeal, she didn't care too much about this thing. But the treasure was in front of her, so she naturally had to take it. Yang Kai nodded slightly and walked over with steady steps. The space sealed by the 8 yin qi chains was useless against Yang Kai. Yang Kai's true Yang Yuan Qi was the nemesis of all yin qi. Walking into this small space, the 9th yin yuan condensing dew seemed to have noticed Yang Kai's intentions and floated in the air, as far away as possible from him. Observing it closely, Yang Kai found that this thing really did look like a gem, but it was in the shape of a dewdrop, and was only about the size of a thumbnail. Bind it with true Yang Yuan Qi. How do I do it? Yang Kai frowned, thought for a moment, and then directly used a drop of Yang liquid. When the Yang liquid appeared, Yang Kai's mind moved, and a big red sheet appeared in his hand. He spread it out and covered the 9th yin yuan condensing dew. The 9th yin yuan condensing dew still wanted to resist, stubbornly drifting left and right and dodging Yang Kai's blow. Interesting. Yang Kai grinned. Although he knew that many precious treasures had their own spirituality, this was the first time he had seen one. Treasures with spirituality were incomparably precious. Not wanting to waste any more time, Yang Kai's other hand appeared again with a drop of Yang liquid, and it turned into a big ball. Let's see how you run this time. Attacking left and right, sure enough, it worked. The fiery red ball wrapped around the 9th yin yuan condensing dew like a fish. With a flick of his finger, the Yang liquid turned into a ball of feces and wrapped around the 9th yin yuan condensing dew, completely calming it down. Yang Kai didn't dare to touch it with his hand, but directly stuffed the Yang liquid and the 9th yin yuan condensing dew into his mouth. The moment it entered his mouth, a bone-chilling cold spread through his mouth. Even though Yang Kai cultivated the true Yang secret art, he couldn't help but shiver at this moment. But in the next moment, there seemed to be an energy that he couldn't see clearly emerging in his body. This energy was more effective than the true Yang Yuan Qi, and it immediately suppressed the chill. At the same time, a crazy attractive force came from his bones, and the true Yang's secret art involuntarily circulated, drawing the energy from the ninth Yin Yuan condensing dew into his bones. Aware of this, Yang Kai's expression changed, and he hurriedly stopped the true Yang's secret art. But in this short moment of delay, Yang Kai felt that the ninth Yin Yuan condensing dew in his mouth had shrunk by half. Instead, a chill grew in his bones and immediately disappeared. Chapter 116. Yang Kai's expression changed. He didn't expect such an unforeseen event to occur. Although he had experimented, he knew that he could absorb other types of energy besides the Yang attribute and store them in his bones. But now, how did he absorb half of the 9 Yin Yuan condensing dew? And at such a ferocious speed. After all, this was something that Xia Ning Chang needed. What should he do? Turning his head, Yang Kai's expression was a bit awkward. Just as he didn't know how to explain it to her, Xia Ning Chang had already come in front of him with a fragrant wind. At this moment, this little senior sister's face was flushed red, her breathing was slightly hurried, and her clear and pure eyes were flustered with shyness. "Junior brother, bear with it." Xia Ning Chang suddenly spoke, slowly reached out a hand, wrapped it around Yang Kai's neck, and gently pulled his head down. Her hand was a bit cold, but soft as if boneless, like the first snowflake in early winter, bringing a refreshing coolness to Yang Kai. Standing on tiptoe, Xia Ning Chang closed her eyes, her long eyelashes trembling uneasily. Then she lifted her veil, slightly tilted her head, and pressed her ruby-red lips on Yang Kai's mouth. Two soft lips and an exciting girl's fragrance lingered at the tip of his nose. Yang Kai was stunned. At this moment, he finally understood why when he asked how to collect the 9 Yin Yuan condensing dew, Treasure Meng and Xia Ning Chang had been so vague and unwilling to tell him. Originally, Yang Kai wasn't too clear about the reason, but at this moment, he suddenly realized there were all kinds of strange ways to collect heaven and earth spiritual treasures. Every kind of spiritual treasure required a different method to collect, but the way to collect the 9 Yin Yuan condensing dew was so beautiful and sweet. As their lips met, Yang Kai's breathing quickened and his throat burned. Even though he had the 9 Yin Yuan condensing dew in his mouth, he couldn't suppress the boiling of his blood. Xia Ning Chang was even more unbearable. After pressing his lips against hers, he remained motionless like a statue. His face was as red as blood, and his heartbeat was as powerful and rapid as a war drum. He was at a loss for what to do, and was clearly flustered. Although Yang Kai didn't quite understand the principle and specific method of subduing the 9 Yin Yuan condensing dew, he knew that he couldn't always maintain this state. Without hesitation, he grabbed Xia Ning Chang's willowy waist and pulled her into his embrace. Then, he used the tip of his tongue to wrap the 9 Yin Yuan condensing dew in his mouth. He pried open her pearly white teeth and sent the natural treasure into her mouth. Stimulated by the 9 Yin Yuan condensing dew, Xia Ning Chang finally regained some of her senses. She accepted the 9 Yin Yuan condensing dew and swallowed it into her stomach. A sweet and fragrant sensation rippled endlessly from the tip of his tongue. The two people's bodies were tightly pressed together. Kai Yang's upper body was bare, so his senses were even more sensitive. How could a young and vigorous youth like him resist this kind of temptation? Almost instinctively, Yang Kai held Xia Ning Chang tightly with one hand and used the other hand to climb up her round and perky buttocks and knead them. Feeling the two lumps of fullness in his chest and feeling the other's body heat, Yang Kai's breathing became more and more rapid. After carefully playing with them for a while, his big hand went around to the front and climbed up, wantonly rubbing the two lumps of jade peaks that were full of amazing elasticity. A moan came out of Xia Ning Chang's mouth. Yang Kai saw her large eyes slowly open a slit. Her eyelashes trembled, but when she realized that he had been staring at her, she quickly closed her eyes in fear. The heavy breathing, the exchange of their bodies, the touch of their tongues, and the mingling of their souls, the young man and woman had almost forgotten everything around them. They hugged each other tightly, as if they couldn't wait to merge into each other's bodies. Suddenly, Yang Kai felt pain on his tongue and couldn't help but scream. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Xia Ningchang placed both hands on Yang Kai's chest. Biting her pearly white teeth, she pushed with force and quickly escaped from Yang Kai's embrace. "Why did you bite me?" Yang Kai felt that his tongue had been bitten, and there was a taste of blood in his mouth. Xia Ningchang covered her chest with one hand. Her breasts rose and fell as she gasped for breath, trying to calm her rapid heartbeat. After a long time, she said, "I'm sorry. To refine the 9 yin yuan condensing dew, I need your innate pure yang qi and a drop of blood from your tongue. To refine the 9 yin yuan condensing dew, one needed pure yang qi. The purer the yang qi, the better." Yang Kai cultivated the true yang tactics, so he undoubtedly met the requirements. But to refine it, one needed innate pure yang qi and a drop of blood from his tongue. The innate pure yang qi was not something that could be obtained through cultivation. Instead, it was a mysterious energy that existed in every man's body from birth. It would disappear after he had intimate relations with a woman. This energy was of no use during normal times. Even if it was lost, it would not have any effect on the body. But it was necessary in certain situations, such as the current situation. Previously, when Yang Kai felt the cold energy that surged out of his body and wrapped around the 9 yin yuan condensing dew, it was innate pure yang qi. That was why Treasurer Meng asked Yang Kai if he was a virgin. Only a virgin would have innate pure yang qi, and only a virgin's blood from his tongue could be used to refine the 9 yin yuan condensing dew. Hearing Xia Ningchang's words, Yang Kai touched his mouth and said seriously, "So that's how it is. Is it enough? If not, I still have more." Wasn't it just a few drops of blood from his tongue? Xia Ningchang was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. She nodded repeatedly. "It's enough. 1 drop is enough." Oh, Yang Kai couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Thinking back to the feeling of his tongue, he couldn't help but reminisce about it. It was his first time being so intimate with a woman. "Little senior sister," Yang Kai called out to her hesitantly, a fiery light flashing across his eyes. Xia Ningchang suddenly panicked. How could she not understand the hidden meaning in Yang Kai's words? She quickly said, "You're injured, so you should heal first. I also need to hurry and refine the 9 yin yuan condensing dew." Oh, Yang Kai remembered that she once said that if the 9 yin yuan condensing dew was not refined within 2 hours after obtaining it, it would completely disappear. Right? This thing. Yang Kai was just about to tell her that he had accidentally sucked in half of the 9 yin yuan condensing dew, but before he could finish, his vision turned black and the whole world started spinning. Then he fell to the ground, and his consciousness quickly faded. "Junior brother." Xia Ningchang turned pale with fright. She quickly went forward to help him up. After a little examination, her face suddenly turned pale. She found that Yang Kai's pulse was extremely weak, and his vitality was faintly discernible. The yuan qi in his body was extremely bleak and chaotic, as if he was a lamp that had run out of oil. This was no small matter. Xia Ningchang's heart almost shrank. How could this be? Just now he was fine. Just now he was with her. How could he suddenly fall unconscious without any warning? But this examination allowed Xia Ningchang to know how serious Yang Kai's injuries were. Needless to say, the wounds on his abdomen and shoulders were already bandaged. But after a fierce battle, the wounds split open again, and blood flowed out. The most serious injury was the one on his chest. 5 of his sternum were broken and sunken inwards. almost injuring his heart and lungs. When Fei Chen's palm strike was filled with anger. How could it be so easy to block it? Chapter 117. After a night of fierce fighting, who knew how much blood he had lost? Only now did Xia Ningchang realize that his junior brother's calmness from beginning to end was due to his strong willpower. With this kind of injury, if it were someone else, they would have died countless times already, but he had gritted his teeth and bitterly endured, fighting side by side with him to kill the last enemy and obtain the 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew. After completing all this, his mind relaxed and naturally couldn't hold on any longer. Enduring the grief in his heart, Xia Ningchang hurriedly took out the remaining pills on Yang Kai's body, then searched Wen Fei Chen's body for a while, forcing himself to calm down, then took out some healing pills and fed them to Yang Kai. But Yang Kai was currently unconscious, so how could he eat the pills? Without any other choice, Xia Ningchang personally chewed the pills and fed them to him. While he was busy, the 9 innate locks formation that sealed off the entire valley suddenly shook and collapsed. It was dawn. The sun rose from the east, and the 9 innate locks formation broke by itself. Xia Ningchang didn't notice the changes in the valley at all, still doing his best to save Yang Kai. A tyrannical and gentle divine sense swept over, causing Xia Ningchang's body to tremble. She suddenly looked up at the sky, and in the next moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of her. Master! As if seeing a savior, Xia Ningchang finally found an outlet to vent the emotions she had been suppressing, tears streaming down her face. Meng Wuya's old face was stiff, and he was about to scold Xia Ningchang when he suddenly realized that something was wrong. He couldn't help but be shocked. What's going on? Old Man Meng had been waiting outside the 9 innate locks formation for most of the night, not daring to break it. He originally thought that subduing the 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew this time wouldn't be a surprise. After all, he had been preparing for Xia Ningchang for so many years. Everything was ready. And as long as Yang Kai cooperated well with the 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew, it would be a piece of cake. It was just that his precious disciple had to make some sacrifices. After staying outside for most of the night, Meng Wu was also sulking. Which master would be drugged by his own disciple? He was afraid that he was the only one in the world. He wasn't angry that he had been drugged and lost, but that Xia Ningchang had recklessly entered Black Wind Mountain. What if she encountered danger? Therefore, Meng Wuya had originally planned to wait until the array was broken before reprimanding Xia Ningchang. Of course, he couldn't reprimand her too much. Towards this disciple of his, Meng Wuya treated her like a treasure, but the scene in front of him caused him to swallow the words that were at the tip of his tongue. Falling to the ground in shock, he looked at the unconscious Kai Yang and asked in a deep voice, "What happened?" Meng Wuya didn't hesitate. He immediately bent down and placed 2 fingers on Yang Kai's wrist. He used his divine sense to sweep through his body. He frowned and said in shock, "How is his injury so serious?" In Meng Wuya's opinion, Yang Kai's injury was more than serious. It was as if he had 1 foot in the grave. He didn't know what had happened, but the internal injury on his chest and the external injuries on his body were secondary. The most important thing was that his Yuan Qi was in chaos. His meridians and flesh were severely damaged. This kind of injury couldn't be treated without a peerless spirit pill. Not only did it require a spirit pill, but it also required a skilled doctor. Meng Wuya had nothing. "Master, will he die?" Xia Ningchang was grief-stricken. She asked worriedly. Meng Wuya saw his disciple's expression and knew that something bad had happened. He sighed in his heart. He had been on guard, but in the end he hadn't been on guard. Not wanting Xia Ningchang to feel sad, Meng Wuya comforted her. "Don't worry, with me here, he won't die." While saying this, he took out a bottle from his bosom and poured out a single pill. This pill was about the size of a longan fruit and was completely golden in color. It was clearly not an ordinary pill. Seeing Meng Wuya take out this pill, Xia Ningchang's panicked expression calmed down. She knew the effects of this pill. With a trace of strong reluctance, Meng Wuya hesitated for a moment. Then, under Xia Ningchang's gaze, he opened Yang Kai's mouth and was about to throw the pill in. "I'll do it." Xia Ningchang suddenly snatched the pill from Yang Kai's hands and popped it into her mouth a few times. Then, she bent down, wrapped the pill with her tongue, and sent it into Yang Kai's mouth, which was filled with blood. Hey! This old man is still here." Meng Wuya screamed in his heart and quickly looked away. Seeing his disciples so close to a man without hesitation, Meng Wuya felt very uncomfortable. It was as if the daughter he had painstakingly raised was about to leave him. After the pill entered his stomach, Yang Kai's complexion seemed to improve. However, the effect was not as good as expected. Meng Wuya took the opportunity to look around. His originally turbid eyes suddenly emitted strands of cold light. He saw Wen Fei Chen's corpse and Long Hui's broken limbs. His doubts disappeared. The reason why Yang Kai was so heavily injured and why his disciple was in such a sorry state was as if they had gone through a fierce battle. Now, he finally found the reason. A wave of anger surged in Meng Wuya's chest, and a trace of hostility appeared on old man Meng's face. He did not immediately ask. Now was not the time to ask. There was still a long way to go, and there would be a chance to clarify what happened last night. Meng Wuya only regretted that he did not immediately break the 9 innate locks when he came here last night. If he had broken the formation at that time, his disciple and Yang Kai would not have suffered such a fate. Vexation and regret grew in his heart and gradually turned into anger, monstrous anger. Taking a deep breath, Meng Wuya suppressed the anger in his heart and gently said, "Disciple, have you absorbed the 9 yin yuan condensing dew?" "Yes." Xia Ningchang foolishly looked at the unconscious Yang Kai and unconsciously nodded. "Then first refine it." "Yang Kai, don't worry. With this old man here, he won't die even if he wants to." Meng Wuya comforted. Xia Ningchang hesitated for a moment before nodding and repeatedly exhorting, "Master, you must not let anything happen to him. It is all thanks to him that this disciple is still alive. If not for his protection, this disciple would have already—" At the end, he began to cry again. "Don't worry." Meng Wuya squeezed out a smile and slightly nodded. Only then did Xia Ningchang calm down. He wiped the corners of his eyes and took out the bag he always carried with him. While paying attention to Yang Kai's situation, he also began to refine the 9 yin yuan condensing dew. Half an hour later, the 9 yin yuan condensing dew was completely refined. However, Xia Ningchang suppressed the effect of the heaven and earth spirit dew in his dantian and did not absorb it. This was because absorbing it was very time-consuming. Once he finished absorbing it, he would advance to the yuan qi stage, which would take a few more days. Yang Kai did not wake up, but Xia Ningchang was not in the mood. "Come, let's leave here first. He needs to be nursed back to health in his current state." Meng Wuya bent down, picked up Yang Kai, and then quickly rushed out of Blackwind Mountain with Xia Ningchang. The two of them did not immediately rush to High Heaven Pavilion. After all, this place was not close to High Heaven Pavilion. Instead, they went to the town where Yang Kai and Xia Ningchang stayed last time. In the town, they found an inn and temporarily stayed. Xia Ningchang did not complain about the hardships, serving Yang Kai by his bedside every day, doing his best. Meng Wuya also poured yuan qi into Yang Kai every day, trying to heal his injuries. After falling into a coma, Yang Kai found that his consciousness had entered a world of nothingness. In this world, There was nothing but the unyielding golden skeleton that he had obtained from the wordless black book. The golden skeleton sat cross-legged, its whole body shining with a golden light. Yang Kai also sat cross-legged in front of it, motionless. There was no sound, no light. Yang Kai kept looking at the golden skeleton. Although the golden skeleton did not have eyes, Yang Kai felt that it was also looking at him. Time passed, and after an unknown amount of time, Yang Kai and the golden skeleton remained in this silent state. Yang Kai was comprehending the mysteries of the golden skeleton. Last time, when he comprehended the unyielding will, Yang Kai felt that there were some hidden mysteries in the golden skeleton waiting for him to understand. But at that time, he was powerless. This time, after experiencing an entire night of life and death battle, Yang Kai suddenly felt that the distance between him and the golden skeleton had been shortened a lot. If there was still some barrier between him and the golden body before, then this barrier had disappeared now. His unyielding will had conquered the golden skeleton's arrogance, and it felt gratified that it had found a suitable master. Suddenly, Yang Kai smiled. The golden skeleton also changed, turning into specks of golden light that merged into his body, just like when he first saw it. However, Yang Kai knew that it was not until this moment that he truly possessed the unyielding golden skeleton. Although it had merged into his body before, it had not truly submitted to him. It had been observing and testing him all this time, and his performance had finally obtained its approval and dispelled its doubts. Only then did it willingly become a part of him. The world of nothingness suddenly collapsed, and Yang Kai's consciousness returned to his body once again. Not in a hurry to open his eyes, Yang Kai slightly checked his current physical condition. The injuries on his body were not serious, but his chest still hurt slightly, and the sword wounds on his abdomen and shoulder were healing very well. In the dantian, there were originally more than 40 drops of yang liquid, but now there were only 7 or 8 drops left. The battle that night had consumed too much yang liquid, just the amount of yang liquid he used on Brother Kai, and when Fei Chen was no less than 20 drops. Not only that, but he also had to resist the invasion of cold qi and fight for so long. However, although he had lost a lot of yang liquid, it was not as if he had gained nothing. This battle had actually allowed him to jump from the initial element boundary 4th stage to the initial element boundary 7th stage, directly advancing 3 stages. Yang Kai could not help but be surprised. Thinking carefully, when he was fighting Wen Fei Chen, he had suddenly obtained the strength of the qi transformation stage while using the unyielding will. It was probably at that time that he had broken through. This time, even Yang Kai himself did not notice the breakthrough. If he had not investigated it now, he would have been kept in the dark. Chapter 118. This wasn't the only benefit. He had unintentionally absorbed half of the 9 yin yuan condensing dew. Originally, Yang Kai didn't understand why, but now he could clearly feel that half of the 9 yin yuan condensing dew was stored in the most hidden part of his golden body. When he broke through to the yuan qi stage, he could use the 9 yin yuan condensing dew to refine his yuan qi and raise his yuan qi to a higher level. This benefit wasn't visible now, but it would become apparent in the future. In addition, he could now clearly understand many of the aspects of his golden body that he didn't understand before. His golden body could absorb energy of any attribute other than the yang attribute, and then store it. When he needed it, it would give back to him. The more energy the golden body absorbed, the stronger his unyielding will would be, and the more help it could give him. However, the energy the golden body gave back was extremely evil, so when he used the unyielding will, his eyes would be filled with a bloodthirsty light, and his body would be surrounded by evil energy. However, because his body had the true yang yuan qi, which was the nemesis of evil, he wouldn't lose his mind. The 2 types of energy restrained each other, but they also complemented each other. This allowed him to increase his battle strength without being affected by the bloodthirsty and crazy energy. Thinking of this, Yang Kai finally understood why the wordless black book gave him the true Yang tactics. It was to prevent him from getting lost in the surge of energy and falling into the path of Mad Demon. Everything was clear now. Yang Kai was just about to open his eyes when he heard a faint sigh in his ear. Immediately, he heard the conversation between Xiaoning Chang and Meng Wuya. Disciple, master has done his best. Meng Wuya's tone was full of guilt, but also a trace of unwillingness and regret. These days, Meng Wuya had been using the Yuan Qi to treat Yang Kai's injuries. It could be said that he had spent a lot of effort, but Yang Kai's injuries didn't improve at all. In addition, Yang Kai had taken a golden pill before. In Meng Wuya's opinion, Yang Kai should have recovered a lot. Even if he couldn't fully recover, he should at least wake up, right? But now, not only was Yang Kai not awake, but he was also unconscious. He didn't know what kind of mysteries Kai Yang's body possessed. That golden pill didn't have the ability to bring him back from the brink of death. All it did was heal his external wounds a little before losing its effect. Even the Yuan Qi that he had infused into Yang Kai's body was nowhere to be found. It was as if there was a bottomless pit in Yang Kai's body, and the Yuan Qi was absorbed as soon as it was infused. How could Meng Wuya know the wonders of the unyielding golden skeleton? The unyielding golden skeleton absorbed all the energy except for the Yang attribute. The golden pill and Yuan Qi had been absorbed by the golden skeleton by 90%. So how could they display their full potential? Master? Xiaoning Chang had been crying all these days, and his eyes were red and swollen. Originally, he still had some hope in his heart, but now that he heard Meng Wuya's words, he was so shocked that his face turned pale. Is there no way at all? Xiaoning Chang looked at his master expectantly. Meng Wuya's background was extraordinary, and his divine technique was vast. If he said that there was no way, then in this world, there really was no one who could save Yang Kai. His soul seems to have been scattered. Meng Wuya's face was heavy. These days, I can't feel the existence of his soul. Xiaoning Chang was stunned, and his face became even paler. But don't worry, he won't die. Meng Wuya quickly comforted him. It's just that he will be in a state of suspended animation. From now on, he won't be able to speak, hear, or feel anything. Unless what? Unless we can find the soul-returning elixir and reform his scattered soul. Meng Wuya sighed, but the soul-returning elixir. This kind of small place doesn't have it. Where is it? Xiaoning Chang's voice suddenly calmed down, and there was a kind of determination in his voice. Meng Wuya looked at him, and then pointed his finger up. Xiaoning Chang was silent, but his eyes were filled with determination. No matter what, he had to find the soul-returning elixir and help junior brother reform his scattered soul. What are you talking about? Just as the two were feeling sad, a hoarse and weak voice came from behind them. Meng Wuya instinctively replied, "We're talking about your injuries." Just as he finished speaking, the expression on old man Meng's face drastically changed. Stiffly and mechanically, he slowly turned his head. His pupils contracted as he saw Yang Kai, who was lying on the bed, staring at him with wide eyes. Junior brother. Xiaoning Chang couldn't contain her joy and rushed over. Her long eyelashes were trembling, and her eyes were filled with unconcealable joy. She looked at Yang Kai with worry, looking at her red and swollen eyes. Yang Kai couldn't help but feel touched. He thought that he had been unconscious for a long time, and during that time, he must have worried her a lot. "I'm fine," Yang Kai said indifferently. "I'm just a bit weak." "Master, quickly come and take a look." Xiaoning Chang rubbed her eyes while pulling at Meng Wuya. It was as if she was trying to drag her teacher over to Kai Yang's side. Old man Meng almost fell over from the pole. He thought to himself, girls are always extroverted. Girls are always extroverted. If it wasn't for the fact that this old man's bones could still withstand the torment, he would have been torn apart by you. However, Meng Wuya finally came back to his senses. He sat beside the bed with a dignified expression and carefully examined him. After a while, Meng Wuya's eyebrows didn't relax. He kept muttering to himself, "Impossible. This doesn't make sense. How could this be?" With every sentence he said, Xia Ning Chang's expression changed. She thought that Yang Kai's injuries had worsened. "Master, junior brother, he—" Xia Ning Chang bit her lips and asked softly. Her heart was in her throat. "Oh, since he's already awake, there shouldn't be any major problems." Meng Wuya's expression was a bit conflicted. He looked at Yang Kai with confusion. "No major problems?" When Xia Ning Chang heard this, she couldn't help but reveal a strange expression. Just now, when she saw her master's expression, it seemed that junior brother's injuries were very serious. How could there suddenly be no major problems? But that's not possible. Meng Wuya was puzzled. "Yang Kai, is this the final radiance of the setting sun?" Yang Kai bitterly smiled. "Treasure Meng, is there anyone who curses people like you?" Meng Wuya's expression became awkward. "But before, your soul had already dissipated. How could it come back now?" When Yang Kai heard this, his heart trembled. Thinking back to when he was unconscious, he guessed that it had something to do with his consciousness sinking into the golden body. "Master, you're a big quack." Xia Ning Chang angrily stomped her feet. Meng Wuya was embarrassed to death. He had just said that Yang Kai was in a state of suspended animation, and that he needed to find the soul-returning elixir to reform his soul. He didn't expect that in the next moment he would wake up. Wasn't that the same as slapping himself in the face? Losing face was a small matter, but losing prestige in front of his disciple was a big matter. Meng Wuya felt that his prestige had reached rock bottom. But no matter what, it was a good thing that Yang Kai could wake up. Although Meng Wuya was worried that he would seduce his disciple, he had risked his life to protect her that night. It was only because of him that his disciple survived and obtained the 9 yin yuan condensing dew. He had to remember this kindness in his heart. Meng Wuya sighed. Since ancient times, good people don't live long, but disasters live for 1,000 years. Yang Kai had just finished harming his precious disciple. So how could he die so easily? He had worried for nothing. But what should he do in the future? Meng Wuya's intestines were in knots. He wanted to cut the Gordian knot, but he was afraid that his disciple would be angry with him. So he hesitated. When Yang Kai woke up, Xia Ning Chang finally relaxed. These days, she hadn't rested much because she was afraid that Yang Kai wouldn't wake up. Now that she had confirmed that Yang Kai was fine, she naturally didn't have to worry. For the next 2 days, Yang Kai was recuperating, Xia Ning Chang was attending to him, and old man Meng was sighing at the side. On the 3rd day, Xia Ning Chang was finally given a strict order by Meng Wuya. He told her that she must first absorb the 9 yin yuan condensing dew, transform her yuan qi into yuan qi, and advance to the yuan qi stage. After all, although this thing had already been refined, it wasn't a good idea to leave it in the dantian. Xia Ning Chang didn't refuse, and obediently did as she was told. Normally, she was a very well-behaved girl. Last time, she had no choice but to drug her master, but that was only a small accident. Although the 3 of them were staying in an inn, Meng Wuya's strength was profound. So he wasn't worried that someone would disturb Xia Ning Chang, so he let her go into seclusion. Yang Kai's side was basically fine, but the wounds on his body and the bones in his chest would naturally take a few days to heal. Every day, he would meditate and cultivate. Once Xia Ning Chang finished advancing, the 3 of them would set off to return to High Heaven Pavilion. One day, while Yang Kai was cultivating, Meng Wuya came in with a bowl of steaming hot soup in his hand. Yang Kai sniffed and smelled the aroma, quickly opening his eyes. Meng Wuya handed the big bowl to Yang Kai, and with a pained expression, he gritted his teeth and said, "Drink it." Yang Kai didn't hesitate, taking the bowl and drinking it in one gulp. He smacked his lips and burped, excitedly saying, "What is this? The medicinal effect is so strong." He could feel his entire body heating up as he swallowed this bowl of food. Furthermore, it contained a huge amount of energy. A part of it seeped into his flesh and meridians to repair his injuries, while the other part was being absorbed by the golden body at this moment. Meng Wuya's mouth twitched, and he said in grief, "This is the ginseng soup that I brewed with 1,000-year-old blood spirit ginseng and various heavenly treasures. Do you think the medicinal effect is strong? Fuck. This thing is priceless, but you drank it all in one gulp. You should at least taste it." "It tastes good." Yang Kai nodded solemnly. Meng Wuya took a deep breath and calmed the rolling blood in his chest. He thought to himself, if it wasn't for my precious disciple wanting me to use this thing to nourish your body before you went into seclusion, how could I bear to take it out? This thing can save your life at a critical moment, and you can't find a single stalk in the entire Darkhan dynasty. What a waste! What a waste! Do you have more?" Yang Kai licked the corner of his mouth, still wanting more. Meng Wuya said in annoyance, "No more. Even if I had more, I wouldn't give it to you. If you eat more, you won't die." He. Yang Kai smiled. He thought to himself, "I have the support of the golden body. No matter how much energy and heavenly treasures I have, I can store them, so I won't die. Tell me what happened that night." Meng Wuya's face suddenly became serious, and his eyes flashed with the anger and killing intent that he had been hiding for a long time. Yang Kai turned his head and glanced at him. "Didn't little senior sister tell you? She was only concerned about your injuries a few days ago, so I didn't ask," Meng Wuya said in a deep voice. Meng Wuya asked in a deep voice, his eyes burning as he looked at Yang Kai, who died in the mountain valley? "And who is it that attacked you?" Chapter 119. They were from the blood group and the storm house. Yang Kai's expression became serious as he roughly recounted what had happened that night. Of course, as for how he had single-handedly killed 9 people, he naturally skipped over the important details and dwelled on the trivial. This matter was too mysterious. Even if he told old man Meng, he would not necessarily believe him. Meng Wuya was furious after hearing this. After a long time, Yang Kai finally finished speaking. Meng Wuya nodded slightly. "So, the main culprit is you, but the mastermind is Long Hui?" "Yes. This time, it is I who have implicated little senior sister." Yang Kai nodded in acknowledgement. "Although you are the main culprit, it is not your fault. Ning Chong is not injured. You do not need to worry about it." Meng Wuya comforted him, then sneered. "Blood group Long Zai Tian. This old man will remember this." Seeing the dangerous light in Meng Wuya's eyes, Yang Kai knew that Long Zai Tian was in big trouble. Yang Kai could not understand old man Meng's origin and strength, but he always felt that he was not an ordinary person. If he really went to find trouble with Long Zai Tian, Yang Kai would be happy to see it, but it was not very satisfying. Yang Kai always believed that revenge must be done personally. If Long Zai Tian died at the hands of Meng Wuya, then he would not be able to avenge that day's hatred. However, Yang Kai would not dissuade him. This time, Meng Wuya was really angry. The fire in his heart must be vented. After staying in the inn for 2 days, Xia Ningcheng finally came out. As expected, her strength had reached the Yuan Qi stage. Yang Kai asked around and found out that the 9 yuan condensing dew did not need to be completely refined for it to have an effect. In theory, 1 drop of the 9 yuan condensing dew could be used by 3 or 4 people. After all, it was only a primer that transformed the cultivator's Yuan Qi into Yuan Qi. However, this item was rather special. If one did not refine it within 2 hours after receiving it, it would disappear without a trace. Thus, even if someone obtained it, it would only be used by one person. Knowing this, Yang Kai couldn't help but relax. It seemed that he had accidentally absorbed half of the 9 yin yuan condensing dew, but it didn't affect Xia Ning Chang at all. Furthermore, up until now, that half a drop of heaven and earth spirit essence had been stored within his golden avatar and had not disappeared, as she had said. With Yang Kai's injuries fully healed and Xia Ning Chang's breakthrough, the three of them naturally wouldn't stay any longer and immediately set off for High Heaven Pavilion. Yang Kai was carried back by Treasurer Meng. Along the way, he ate a lot of wind and felt dizzy. After returning to High Heaven Pavilion, Yang Kai bid farewell to the master and disciple pair and returned to his small wooden house. Although he hadn't returned for nearly 20 days, the small wooden house was still as clean as new. It seemed that during his absence, Li Yuntian and the others had helped him take care of it. In the following days, Yang Kai once again returned to his previous peaceful life, cultivating every day and stabilizing his current realm. However, when he was idle, the figure of that cute little senior sister would occasionally appear in front of him. After all, this was the first woman Yang Kai had kissed. That sweet and soft feeling was still lingering in his mind. However, after returning, Xia Ning Chang had not appeared. It was as if she had forgotten the agreement between the two of them. That night, in the mountain crack before Yang Kai left, he had said that if he could return alive, Xia Ning Chang would agree to one of his requests. At that time, Yang Kai had only wanted to find something for himself to remember and had no deeper meaning. Although he felt a little disappointed, Yang Kai didn't care too much about it. I quietly floated past, waving my sleeves without taking away a cloud. Drifting past that kiss, it was only because he wanted to subdue the 9th yin yuan condensing dew. Although at that time both of them were a little emotional, it didn't mean anything. They were both young and full of vigor, so in that kind of situation, it was inevitable that they would be emotional. Yang Kai didn't feel inferior because of the difference in strength between them. When it came to strength, as long as he diligently cultivated, he would naturally become stronger. He believed that one day he would be able to surpass this little senior sister and surpass any other person of the same age. Because the unyielding golden skeleton had infinite possibilities. Feelings weren't what Yang Kai needed to consider right now. If it was his, it would eventually be his. If it wasn't his, even if he forced it, there wouldn't be any results. If Xia Ning Chang was interested in him, then what did it matter if his strength was low? If she really alienated him because of his low strength, Yang Kai had nothing to say. If others didn't like him, could he blame them for having high standards? However, with her delicate and pure personality, she shouldn't be so snobbish. On this point, Yang Kai was right. After Xia Ning Chang returned to High Heaven Pavilion, she was really embarrassed to see Yang Kai. Thinking back to that night's passion, she felt a little ashamed. Even if she wore a veil, she still didn't have the face to appear in front of Yang Kai. Moreover, as soon as she returned to High Heaven Pavilion, Meng Wu made her go into seclusion again. On the surface, it was to consolidate her newly promoted cultivation, but in reality, it was because he was afraid that she and Yang Kai would still be together. Otherwise, with her personality, she would have come to ask Yang Kai how his body was recovering. After cultivating for 2 days, Yang Kai was quite dissatisfied with his results. Absorbing Yang Qi by the coiling dragon stream was too slow. It was far inferior to directly eating spirit fruits and absorbing Yang inflammation stones. The amount of Yang liquid in the dantian was very small, so he had to quickly replenish it. Otherwise, if he encountered a battle like that night again, he was afraid that he would fall into an awkward situation where he couldn't cook without rice. Thinking about it, Yang Kai decided to go to Black Wind trade again. First, he wanted to buy something that could condense Yang liquid. Second, he wanted to buy the 3-leaved Chaos Spirit Flower and Dead Jedi Tree Grass. The incense burner hadn't been used for a long time. As for money, Yong-kai had a lot of it. He was no longer the poor ghost he was before. These silvers were all plundered from the people of Blood Group. At that time, it was too dark, so Yong-kai didn't carefully count them. When he came back, he found that this group of people was really rich. Just by plundering a few people, he actually obtained nearly 20,000 taels of silver. With this much money, he could buy 40 pieces of Yang Inflammation Stones. It was enough to make up for the loss of that night, and more than double. A few hours after Yong-kai left for Black Wind trade, Meng Wuya also left with a murderous aura. His goal was the Blood Group. Although the Blood Group was one of the 3 major forces in the vicinity, how could Meng Wuya be afraid of them? His own disciple almost suffered a fatal disaster and almost lost her innocence. This account must be settled. Long Huey's death didn't matter. Didn't he have a grandfather? If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. If there was no one protecting him, how could a trivial Long Hui be so arrogant? So in Meng Wuya's view, Long Zai Tian was even more hateful than Long Hui. He deserved to be killed. High Heaven Pavilion was not far from the Blood Group. Meng Wuya's speed was extremely fast, so in the time it took to drink a cup of tea, he arrived at the Blood Group's headquarters. At this moment, the Blood Group's upper echelons were discussing important matters. In the main hall, the leader of the Blood Group, Human, was sitting upright. This person was like his name, born with a bare waist and a tiger back. His face was fierce and fierce. At first glance, one could see that he was not a good person. In front of Human, the Blood Group's hall masters, branch leaders, and others were sitting upright. These people were reporting to Human about the recent events of the past month, including the income and expenditure of the Blood Group. Human was very impatient, so he waved his hand and said, "Let's not talk about these trivial matters. How is the mining area's seal being broken?" A young man of about 27 years old stood up and respectfully said to Human, reporting to the leader, "Grandfather has made some progress, but the number of experts in the gang is too small. Although the Flowing Time Great Emperor has been around for a long time, it is not easy to break. Grandfather had sent a letter to Long Jun a few days ago, asking me to pass on the message. He will do his best to break the seal as soon as possible." This young man was Long Zaitian's eldest grandson, Long Hui's elder brother, Long Jun. He was already at the 2nd level of Yuan Qi realm. Although his aptitude was not as good as the other geniuses, it was not too bad. Because the Long family's position in the Blood Group was not low, even though Long Jun was only at the 2nd level of Yuan Qi realm, he still held an important position and was one of the Blood Group's hall masters. Human nodded slightly, and that's good. Long Jun, if you have free time, go to the mining area and say hello to your grandfather. Tell him you have worked hard. Yes, I don't know what kind of mysteries are hidden in the seal. It is actually buried several tens of feet underground. One of the Blood Group's hall masters suddenly wondered. This is all thanks to our Miss May Air's insight. If she did not say that there was something strange under the mine, I am afraid we would not have known about it. Yes, although Miss May Air is young, her eyesight is extraordinary. I really don't know how she saw through it. Hearing a group of people praising Humayer, although it was suspected that they were flattering, Human still felt very comfortable. But when he remembered that Humayer was a girl and would eventually be married off, Human could not help but sigh, "Fuck his grandmother. I, your father, am so wise and powerful. I have countless concubines and work hard every night. How can I only give birth to 2 daughters?" This was a sore point for Human. He had no sons in his family, so he could not continue his career. The group of people were still praising Hu Mei Er's unique eyesight. Even Hu Jiao Er was praised to the heavens. Hu Man was only unhappy. Speaking of this matter, it was really strange. The mining area had been discovered a few years ago. The blood group used the mining area to mine yang inflammation stones and yin yuan stones to earn a lot of money. In the past few years, the blood group had developed rapidly. A large part of the reason was because they relied on the mining area, but no one knew that several tens of feet below the mining area, there were many mysterious and profound seals. Close to 2 months ago, Hu Man's youngest daughter, Hu Mei Er, suddenly came back and told him about this matter. He laughed it off and did not take it seriously, until Hu Mei Er kept pestering him and insisted that Hu Man send people to investigate. He had no choice but to unwillingly send people to dig in that direction, although Hu Mei Er had clearly told Hu Man that this matter must not be known by the Long family. However, Hu Man himself didn't care about this matter. He thought it was just a girl's prank, using this method to attract his attention. In addition, the matter of the mine was originally managed by Long Zai-Tian, so this matter couldn't be hidden. The mining area was originally excavated underground. The location that Hu Mei Er mentioned was not very far. After 10 or so blood group disciples painstakingly excavated for 10 days, they discovered that the location was indeed unusual. Chapter 1:20. That area was actually covered with restrictions. The disciples quickly reported this discovery. After Hu Man received the news, he personally went down to investigate, but he couldn't understand these restrictions and couldn't see through them. In the blood group, Long Zai-Tian was the oldest and had the most experience. Moreover, he already knew about this place. So Hu Man let him take charge of breaking these restrictions and see what was hidden inside. Hu Man had a feeling that there was a great secret hidden within the restriction. If the blood group could obtain this secret, then their strength would definitely leap to another level. Not to mention that they would be able to compete with the 8 great families, but at least they would be able to stand on equal footing with the first-class forces. Hu Man was also somewhat vexed. At that time, Hu Mei Er had repeatedly warned him that this matter must be kept a secret, but he didn't take it to heart. Now, the entire upper echelon of the group knew about it. That day, after returning from the mining area, Hu Man hurriedly went to find Hu Mei Er. He wanted to inquire about how she knew that there was a secret hidden under the mining area. What he didn't expect was that Hu Mei Er would actually quarrel with him because of this matter. During the quarrel, Hu Man found out that his daughter had received guidance from an expert. It was that expert who told Hu Mei Er that there was a secret under the mining area. But because he didn't care, it caused his daughter to fail to live up to that expert's trust. That expert didn't want the Long family to know about this secret. Daughter, what kind of expert is he? Hu Man was in awe of that mysterious expert. To be able to see the secret buried under the ground, this expert's strength was definitely not small. In Hu Man's imagination, this person definitely had a strength that could shock the heavens and make ghosts and gods weep. What kind of expert? At that time, Hu Mei Er's mind appeared with Yang Kai's appearance. Her face slightly reddened, and she rolled her eyes at her father. I won't tell you. Looking at her appearance, Hu Man was immediately shocked. Could it be that his daughter was interested in this expert? After asking around in a roundabout manner, Hu Man was shocked at that time. This expert was actually a young man. Such a person, how bad could his background be? Daughter, have you fallen in love with him? Hu Man excitedly inquired. In his opinion, his daughter would always be married off, but the most important issue was who she would marry. If she could marry into one of the 8 great families, then that would be the best-case scenario. The blood group would also be able to fly into the sky and become a phoenix. But this young man with good eyesight was definitely not bad. So what if I do? Hu Mei Er sighed faintly. If you like her, then try to get close to her. My daughter is so beautiful. Could it be that he doesn't like her? Barbarian Hu urged, that's right. Could it be that he already has a wife? It's normal for a man to have multiple wives and concubines. Hu Mei Er turned around and glared at him. It's because of you that I've failed to live up to someone's trust. How can I still have the face to see them? Humph! When Hu Man heard this, he could only laugh in embarrassment. How could he know that his daughter was telling the truth? If he knew, he wouldn't have shared this secret with her. It had to be said that Hu Man had completely misunderstood Yang Kai. If he knew that the expert in his heart was only a High Heaven Pavilion trial disciple, he feared that Hu Mei Er wouldn't have enough time to avoid him. How could he let her get close to him? Retracting his train of thought, Hu Man let out a long sigh, thinking to himself that this matter was really worrying. His daughter had been in seclusion these past few days and didn't like to run around like before. Her strength had improved a lot, but if she didn't get in touch with that young man, how could she have the opportunity to marry him? The group of hall leaders and helm leaders were still flattering Hu Man, but to Hu Man it was like chewing wax. Just as he was about to get up and leave, Hu Man's movements suddenly stopped. He immediately raised his head and looked towards the door. His face couldn't help but reveal a dignified expression. In the next moment, all the hall leaders and helm leaders quickly shut their mouths and turned their heads. An invisible pressure, as if the heavens were pressing down on them, made everyone's heart tremble. An expert had arrived at the blood group. Everyone in the main hall felt the aura of the person who had arrived. Immediately after, an old voice sounded in everyone's ears, whereas Long Zai Tian. This voice was very calm, and no emotions could be heard from it. However, everyone present couldn't help but shiver. They faintly felt that this expert who had suddenly appeared had some ill intentions. Looking for Vice Leader Long? The group of people looked at each other and couldn't help but feel puzzled. Follow me outside to take a look. Hu Man stood up and walked out in large strides. Behind him, the hall leaders and helm leaders followed closely behind. Outside the room, everyone saw an old man standing motionlessly in midair. This person's hair and beard were all white, and his face was as calm as water. A pair of sharp eyes swept over, like an eagle overlooking the earth, carrying a disdainful arrogance and unruliness. Being swept by this pair of eyes, everyone involuntarily felt a sense of insignificance. Peak of immortal ascension boundary. Hu Man exclaimed, his rough face slightly twitching. Peak of immortal ascension boundary? Some people were shocked. Is he the sect master of High Heaven Pavilion? Within this 1,000-mile radius, there were a few immortal ascension boundary masters, but when it came to the peak of immortal ascension boundary, only the sect master of High Heaven Pavilion could appear and disappear like a ghost. This person's age was similar to the rumored sect master of High Heaven Pavilion. No wonder people would mistakenly recognize him. It's not him. Hu Man slowly shook his head. When he was young, he had seen the sect master of High Heaven Pavilion, so he naturally remembered his appearance. He was completely different from this old man in front of him. Moreover, although this person was at the peak of immortal ascension boundary, the pressure he brought to Hu Man was far greater than the immortal ascension boundary. Hu Man himself was an immortal ascension boundary 7th stage master, so even if the sect master of High Heaven Pavilion personally came, he wouldn't feel too much pressure. The old man in front of him was different. When Hu Man looked at him, it was like looking at a mountain that could never be climbed, a river that couldn't be crossed. Even if he spent a lifetime of energy, he could only look up at his back. This feeling was very strange, but Hu Man always believed in his intuition. This old man, he couldn't be an enemy. He couldn't be an enemy. Where did this master come from? Hu Man's face was heavy. He stepped forward, cupped his fist, and respectfully asked, "May I ask Senior's name?" The person who came was naturally Meng Wuya. Meng Wuya had been suppressing his anger for a long time. Originally, when he returned to High Heaven Pavilion, he wanted to find trouble with Long Zai Tian, but he was afraid that his disciple would secretly find Yang Kai, so he waited for her for 2 days. After confirming that she was really in retreat, he leisurely came. "You're Long Zai-Tian?" Meng Wuya narrowed his eyes fixed on Hu Man like a hawk. Hu Man's yuan qi involuntarily circulated, as if he was in a life or death crisis, but he didn't show it. After all, he was the leader of a gang. His mind was firm. If he was scared by a few words from the opposite party, what kind of scandal would that be? "This one is the leader of Blood Group, Hu Man, I don't know, senior." Before Hu Man could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by Meng Wuya, his tone full of impatience. "If you are not Long Zai-Tian, then why are you interrupting?" Hu Man felt a burst of bitterness, but it was not good for him to vent his anger. When he was about to open his mouth to explain one or two things, Meng Wuya had already flipped out. "Damn Long Zai-Tian. Fuck your 18 generations of ancestors. Get the hell out of here for this old man." This roar could really be said to be earth-shattering, shaking the earth and shaking the earth. The whole Blood Group, even the people of Storm House and High Heaven Pavilion, all heard it clearly. After the roar, the whole place was silent. A group of Immortal Ascension Boundary and Yuan Qi Boundary experts all looked at Meng Wuya stupidly, dumbfounded and flabbergasted. They never thought that such an awe-inspiring expert would actually open his mouth and curse people, and moreover, curse in such a vicious and vulgar way. Where is your demeanor? Where is your identity? Any expert with a little bit of strength and prestige would not do such a thing, right? In the end, what kind of hatred did he have to throw away his own self-cultivation and demeanor? Long Zai-Tian stole his family's chicken and snatched his family's dog, unexpectedly making him so angry. However, Meng Wuya's roar made the people of Blood Group clearly understand that the newcomer was not good. Hu Man said with a calm face, "Senior, can we talk things over?" Although the newcomer's strength was tyrannical, Hu Man did not want to be his enemy, but Long Zai-Tian was still the deputy leader of Blood Group. If Meng Wuya slapped him, Hu Man would have to suffer half of it. "I said you are numb. Tell Long Zai-Tian to get the hell out of here. If he does not come out today, then cut off his head and give it to this old man as a urinal. This old man will slaughter your Blood Group." Meng Wuya aggressively came to find trouble, but unexpectedly did not see the person in question. His anger could be imagined. Blood Group, he really did not put them in his eyes. Hu Man's face showed a murderous look. Even a person of clay had 3 points of anger, not to mention Hu Man, who had a violent temper. If he did not have scruples about Meng Wuya's strength, how could he be so kind? But Meng Wuya did not give him any face. Hu Man was really angry. "Hey, Long Zai-Tian is a coward, not daring to come out and see this old man?" Meng Wuya looked down and said contemptuously. This time, it was a young man who replied with a cold face, "Old mister, can you watch your words? What kind of enmity do you have with my grandfather that you dare to insult him like this?" The person who spoke was Long Jun. Meng Wuya scolded Long Zai-Tian. His filthy words were extremely unpleasant to hear. As a member of the Long family, how could Long Jun endure? Relying on the fact that this was the headquarters of Blood Group, there were many experts, he immediately retorted, "So what if he was at the peak of Immortal Ascension Boundary? Blood Group also has Immortal Ascension Boundary experts. If you really dare to fight here, then you will not be able to return. Your grandfather?" Meng Wuya narrowed his eyes. Staring at Long Jun, "The person old man is looking for is my grandfather." Long Jun replied in a deep voice, "Good, good, good." Meng Wuya laughed. "Dragons give birth to dragons. Phoenixes give birth to phoenixes. Mice give birth to babies. That Long Hui is not a good person. You are his elder brother. You are also not a good person." How did he bring up Long Hui's head? Everyone suddenly felt that this old man's mind was not clear. He was rambling. They did not know what he wanted to say. Long Jun angrily said, "Old man, don't be so savage. This is Blood Group. It is not your turn to behave atrociously. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.